to
Did
go
you
any
have
further with it.
did you have the what's it called? The cul-de-sac first.
I don't know. It just started straight
Something.
up like that, and I was like, "Fuck it."
Mine
Sometimes I let it grow out on the sides just for the fuck of it, but
Mine was all on the back at the top.
What does
And
possible
then it
look
started
like?
thinning at the front and going back. But, I was already shaving it well before that. And
yeah.
one of my neighbors is like, oh, it'll never grow back. I'm like, I hope the hell it don't. If I can't have it all, I don't want any of it.
Well, I've seen you with your camera on, and I think you're still as handsome as the day you were born.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, sir.
Well, this is kind of a nice segue because we are live now. It was Nate, who is a male, complimenting the appearance of Canaman, who is also a male. That's right. Today we are talking about homosexuality. And not just homosexuality, we are dealing with the proposition homosexual as good as heterosexual. Do you agree with the proposition? That's what we're going to talk about today. Are these things just as good? How do you measure good, bad, right, wrong? I'm going to give you guys a link to our beautiful Discord server where our community hangs out all day, every day. Well, maybe not all day. Some of us have other work to do, but here's how you can join the conversation. Join us. Join the discussion here. Boom. Pin. So the topic today, thanks for being here, everyone who's in here early. Make sure you smash the like button when you get into the room. The topic today is the claim that homosexual as good as heterosexual. Sometimes I have to shorten these titles because shortened titles do better on YouTube. So that's why it sometimes, normally I would add a few more words to that proposition, but it is what it is. So first, let me just read for everyone in the room that's interested. What is homosexuality? Homosexuality is a sexual orientation characterized by romantic, emotional, or sexual attraction to individuals of the same sex or gender. It is one of the several sexual orientations alongside heterosexuality, attraction to the opposite sex, bisexuality, attraction to more than one gender, and others. Key features of homosexuality: sexual orientation. Homosexuality refers specifically to the enduring pattern of attraction, not just a single behavior or experience. It is distinct from gender identity, which pertains to one's person's sense of their own gender. Male, female. Well, it says here male, female, non-binary, but I kind of disagree with how that, but whatever. We're not talking about that today. Identity and labels. People who identify as homosexuals often use labels such as gay, commonly used for men, or lesbian, commonly used for women. Some individuals may not use these terms, but still experience same-sex attraction. Romantic and emotional aspects. Homosexuality includes more than just sexual behavior. Emotional intimacy, romantic relationships, and deep connections with same-sex partners are integral aspects. Universal phenomena. Homosexuality is observed all across cultures, races, religions, and historical periods. It is also found in many animal species, making it a natural aspect of biological diversity. Origins and development, biological factors. Research suggests that sexual orientation is influenced by a combination of genetic, hormonal, and neurological factors. Twin studies indicate a genetic component, although no single, quote, gay gene has been identified. Prenatal hormone exposure may also play a role in influencing sexual orientation. Environmental and social factors. Current scientific consensus holds that environmental factors such as upbringing or culture influences do not cause homosexuality. Sexual orientation is understood to emerge naturally, often during adolescence. Social and historical contexts. Acceptance and stigma. Attitudes towards homosexuality vary widely across cultures and historical periods. Some societies have accepted and celebrated homosexuality, while others have criminalized or stigmatized it. In many modern societies, movements like LGBTQ+ rights have sought to secure equality and combat discrimination. Legal and religious views. Legal recognition of same-sex relationships varies globally, with some countries recognizing same-sex marriage and others criminalizing homosexuality. Religious views on homosexuality differ significantly, ranging from acceptance and support to rejection and condemnation. Homosexuality in the modern era, LGBTQ plus community. Homosexuality is a core aspect of LGBTQ plus community, which encompasses a spectrum of sexual and gender identities. Advocacy for LGBTQ plus rights includes fighting for marriage equality, anti-discrimination laws, and the right to live authentically. Representation and visibility. Increased visibility in media, politics, and society has fostered greater acceptance and understanding. Representation helps challenge stereotypes and promote inclusivity. Misconceptions, not a choice. Scientific consensus affirms that sexual orientation is not a conscious choice or behavior that can be changed, not a mental disorder. Homosexuality was declassified as a mental illness by the American Psychiatric Association in 1973 and by the World Health Organization in 1992. Not, quote, unnatural. Homosexuality is a natural variation of human sexuality observed in other species as well. Homosexuality is a natural and valid expression of human diversity. It encompasses a range of romantic, emotional, and sexual attractions to individuals of the same sex or gender. Efforts to understand and respect homosexuality contribute to a more inclusive and equitable society, if that's something you care about. So let's open up the room. What do people have to say about homosexuality? I know we have a lot of Christians in the server, and I hope they show up. People who claim to, live by the word of God. And of course, if we look at, the history of Christian arguments against homosexuality, there are a lot of things that they will cite, like Leviticus 18:21 and Romans 1:26-27, which explicitly condemn homosexual behavior as sinful. But then there's rebuttals like cultural context, selective interpretations, and just in general the interpretation debate on that. And there are a lot of Christians today that accept homosexuality as just one of God's creations, and that it shouldn't be condemned, and that the verses used to condemn homosexuality don't actually say what those people think they're saying. So let's get some conversations rolling here. What does everyone have to say about homosexuality, their experience with it, how they feel about it? We already have someone in the YouTube chat typing out FAGGOT. So I'm going to hide user on this channel because they're just a troll. Go get a job. Go do something constructive. Thank you for playing. Thomas, do you have anything to say?
I don't know if I'm the only gay person in the room, but I'm way better than every heterosexual. I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I've had to grow up with it my entire life. I've had to hide it because I live in Alabama. I didn't get to talk about it in middle school or high school or any of that for fear of being completely a pariah. I didn't come to truly accept it until in my early 20s. So it was, when I say truly accept it, I mean live as though it's a true thing instead of continually trying to hide it. Living in Alabama and being gay is just not fun.
Yeah, no kidding. That doesn't shock me at all, because it's quite a conservative, religious, right-wing state, right? And
yeah, it's garbage. You can say garbage. It's okay.
Well, those groups don't tend to be very accepting of anything that they feel runs against particular traditions. In this case, the sanctity of marriage or the family unit and stuff like this. And, and I saw that a lot too, like growing up, and I grew up technically in a small village where, there was there was only a couple, like maybe one out gay person in the high school that I was in. And it was, and it was a big deal. It was like, oh, one out gay person. Wow. It's like, what does that mean? How different are they? And that's what it was like growing up in a small town, coming into contact with this reality for the first time. And surely in my high school, there was many more gay people. In fact, many have come out since, but it's a shame that people have had to go through this in so many different stretches of time in human history, where they couldn't just live as their authentic selves. And and often the arguments against this are just the naturalistic fallacy, which we've demonstrated to be completely dead wrong. That like people say it's just not natural. It's like, sorry, it is natural. We find it in many different species, and I can read some information on that eventually here. And for me, as a moral well-beingist, I am fine defending the claim, and I do defend the claim that homosexual is as good as heterosexual. There's nothing more good about heterosexual than homosexual. We can have conversations about what does the importance of procreation mean to my overall view of humanity and my love for humanity. But guess what? You can procreate. Homosexuals can procreate. They can procreate, not in the same way. No, it's not like you can, two males can have homosexual sex and then they're going to grow, a fetus in some magical womb. That's not what I'm talking about. We have technologies and ways that homosexuals can have children and procreate. So, I just wanted to throw that out there before people start throwing the naturalistic fallacy in anyone's face here, because that one is far debunked. You should have lost that a long time ago.
I confess, I sometimes even forget just how far we've come on the subject just in just a decade, really.
Yeah.
Because there's certainly a part of me that on the one hand is like, what's there to talk about? It just is. Yeah. Why is this, like, what discussion even needs to be had? But at the same time, I grew up in a highly conservative culture,
right?
Highly religious culture. And I and other people around me were on the receiving end of that. I am also part of the alphabet mafia, different letter, but like it's just.
TiVo, I'm curious how much, because like Travis said a bunch of stuff about like scientific data and stuff like that, and Thomas talked about his experience in Alabama. Like what was, I don't know if you mind me asking, like what was, like, did you have people talking about like homosexuality in terms of politics or in terms of morality or in terms of like a social group or, like a legal definition? I don't know if that's a fair question to ask, but.
Well, so I grew up in Utah. So I grew up in a highly Mormon LDS environment. And so, like it was something that came up. It wasn't something that that was on my radar until I was a teenager. But it also, I don't know that it was a political issue until, it was basically when Massachusetts legalized gay marriage in 2003. Although I will say, I do remember me and my very erudite self, my young self in fourth grade, I had never heard the term gay other than in the context of the very, very old-fashioned sense of the term. And apparently I was even more sheltered than many of my other Mormon peers who knew what that word meant contemporarily. So, and I had an interesting argument with them once upon a time in fourth grade, it's not terribly important.
So
But I
yeah.
did wind up going home and asking my parents, like, what does that mean? And my dad said something to the effect of, it's when, two men love each other and shouldn't do that. And that's about as far as the conversation progressed at the time.
So I mean, that's even like more social context than I remember, because I remember people, saying the F word on Xbox Live, whatever, you'd hear it around school, but like, being like a 12, 13, 15, 16, 17-year-old, like I didn't really have deep sort of like relationships with people in the point where I thought about that. And then like it like, not to undermine like other experiences I could share, but like then it was Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and then it was the Equal Protection Act. Like I campaigned with HR, not to virtue signal, but I campaigned with HRC for that, and so it was always political and things like that. For I had a bunch of that.
Oh, never mind. I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind. Totally forgot. Oh, yeah, that's what I remember. There was a game that was played a lot at recess when I was in elementary school. It was called Smear the Queer. The game itself was actually a pretty fun game, but the name, I didn't even know what it meant. And I don't think anyone else really knew what it meant either. It was just what we called the game.
Yeah.
That's almost like indoctrination, right? You don't even know what it is, but it's just being shoved down your throat, right?
Yeah. Everyone, I want to say hi to everyone on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. There's 120 of you in the room right now. If you all just take a second to smash that like button, we'd really appreciate it. Just touch it, dab it, slash it, whatever you want to do to that like button. It loves it. We are going to be sitting here all night talking about this proposition that homosexual is as good as heterosexual. And I've made that claim, and that's a proposition I defend. So I wanted to bring up one, because people talk all the time like, oh, why does there need to be all this LGBTQ marching? Like, why can't they just get out of my face with that? Well, let's look at the history of violence against LGBTQ plus people, and then you can see if you still feel the need to ask that question. There's a reason why rights and having a fair shot in the public sphere is an important thing to celebrate and remind ourselves of. So the history of violence against LGBTQ plus people, including the murder of gay individuals, spans centuries and is deeply rooted in cultural, religious, and legal systems that have marginalized and criminalized homosexuality. Below is so here we go. Ancient civilizations. In ancient cultures like Greece and Rome, same-sex relationships were sometimes accepted or normalized with certain contexts. Pederasty in Greece, relationships among Roman elites. However, attitudes were inconsistent, and later Roman laws under Emperor Justinian in the Byzantine Empire criminalized same-sex acts, associating them with sin and immorality. Religious influence. Christianity. As Christianity became dominant in Europe, it teaches increasingly its teachings increasingly condemned homosexuality. Theologians like Augustine and Aquinas framed same-sex relationships as sinful, leading to severe punishments, including execution under church-influenced laws. Islam. In Islamic history, same-sex relationships were also criminalized in various contexts based on interpretations of the Quran and Hadith. Punishments range from flogging to execution in some regions. Now, I know some people will be offended by the thumbnail image today of Prophet Muhammad in his sexy garb, supporting homosexuality with the rainbow flag behind him. I don't care if you're offended by it. I don't care. What offends me is the history and what's currently going on in some parts of the Islamic world with regards to hatred and killing of homosexuals just for being homosexual. And I did the same with Jesus as well. I don't care if you're offended by that. And we can have good faith, helpful discussions about homosexuality, the relationship of homosexuality in those religions. So other religious traditions such as Hinduism and Buddhism have had mixed records. While ancient texts sometimes include diverse perspectives on sexuality, colonial influences often impose stricter anti-gay laws. We can get into that more.
Hey, Travis, can I try pulling you back just a second? Not saying anything you're saying is wrong there. But one of the things I just wanted to put on the floor or whatever to talk about is that, like, I didn't learn about, I think it was called the Stonewall riots, until I was, I didn't actually learn about it until I was 30. And this sounds like super hacky. I saw the movie Milk, and all this other stuff, and it was like, holy crap, all this stuff. But my experience becoming familiarized with homosexuality as someone who's and I know this is even disrespectful, as straight as they come. But my experience was I learned, I'm working with someone who's gay. I wouldn't have guessed they were gay. And this is the millennial thing, and kind of what Thomas was saying, where I appreciate people weren't able to be openly out back in the day. But back to your points, talking about I just don't know, talking about subjugation and all this other stuff. But that's just, to me, that's not congruent with my human experience about how I learned about, there's people with a different experience than me.
But like I tried to explain last time with the last topic, Nate, your anecdotes are important when talking about your experience, but we're not basing the general topic on your anecdotes, right?
Right.
We're taking a look at history. We're taking a look at religious laws, the millions of people who have been killed, murdered, subjugated by religiosity and certain geopolitical laws. So I do I don't know why you're saying that, I guess. With regards to the wide topic of what homosexuality has been in its history and where we are today.
In Mormonism, at the very least, I will say, Mormons, even still, the church kind of hits this line. They don't think of it as an orientation. They think of it as an activity or a temptation, but they don't think of it as an intrinsic part of your identity or of your personality.
Yeah.
That's probably because most of the leaders of the Mormon church are gay, and they're touching little kids, and they're getting back. No, we can't say that. We can't say this is what it is.
And funnily enough,
can I respond back to Travis real quick?
Well, let them finish, and then we'll go back to you, Nate. So we'll get your response.
Yeah, I'll just wrap that. Funnily enough, in Mormonism, the general MO was to just pretend like sex doesn't exist, and we won't put any ideas in anyone's heads, and we'll correct them on the down low if we need to. Yep. The idea that masturbation would lead to gay sex was a thing.
So here's something that's interesting. Do you ever think about the predilection of the leaders in the Mormon church about the anti-gay stuff as being the same thing with just the normal Mormons getting involved in soaking, right? So we can't have sex, but we can soak, right?
I mean, soaking still counts as breaking the law of chastity in Mormonism. So I don't know which Mormons they're kidding themselves.
But the fact that you are familiar with it is quite interesting. But
the fact that it's even a thing is the point that I'm trying to make.
For a very pro-family and pro-having kids religion, it is astonishingly sex-phobic.
O Sigma in the chat just said, "What the hell stream did I just stumble upon here?" Well, it could be a stream just for you. Be open-minded.
Nate, go for it.
Let's go back to Nate.
Yeah. So I'll just mention this, that if we are like, I'm not saying that the issue of LGBTQ LGBT rights and human rights don't deserve the same platform. But it's also easy to create parallels and say, well, why aren't we screaming about, shouldn't we still be talking about police brutality in the same way in 2024? Shouldn't we still be talking about Darfur, or we can talk about Somalia, or we can talk about a million other places where there's grave injustices, and or places like under authoritarian regimes, they have smaller prison populations, but people get beat and thrown in jail for the same types of things. And so why is this approach of some like really higher order socio-political thing, why is that more valuable than human experience?
Because police brutality touches a very small amount of people compared to some other issues. Like that's what's going to happen. Like there are issues out there that really matter to me, like the routine circumcision of children that I find to be one of the most disgusting acts that humanity continues to roll out there. And that's a big issue to me. But I don't, as important that is as that is to me, I recognize that the issue globally of homosexuality and its representation in society is a much more widespread, touching so many, like it's hard to find someone who has not been touched by homosexuality.
But isn't the ivory trade the same thing? Like if we're going to put all suffering on the same level?
No, not at all. Not even close.
That's I mean, I think you're cheapening the conversation by, using these things that,
hold on, because you're talking about like ivory trade would be like a business that you get into where you go and shoot elephants and or rhinoceroses to get that ivory and then trade it, as where homosexuality is just the way somebody is born. Like homosexuality is just the way somebody is born. Like I don't see how you can there. Even there's a zero parallel there. It doesn't make any sense, right? Do you see that?
It does. It's acts of violence from power. I mean, it's the same thing. And so, like,
Nate, I get the sense.
I don't understand what's wrong with that.
Nate, I get the sense that you don't like it when I point out where, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but when I point out Islam does disgusting things around this planet, or they it's responsible for disgusting things, you seem to always jump in and want to like steer the conversation away from that. Am I getting that wrong?
No, I think there's parity when you're not able to place things accurately in the real world.
What are you talking
and
about?
I'll say this affectionately towards the Pangburn Discord. And for folks listening on YouTube, but like jump in, but like it's also the case that like if you're not adding context, and if things that have historical or inter and interpersonal relevance lose that, then it's really difficult for someone like me to make sense of something like that.
Yeah, I think
it becomes a lot harder for me.
I think that's a you problem. I think in your mind you're causing yourself to obfuscate issues, and you're denying the surface facts of issues. The surface facts of issues matter. Not just the deep underlying experience of the individual within that issue. These generalized issues and generalized facts of what has occurred, these are giving a general context to the conversation. Then we can dive into the details. But so far, I'm sorry, but you've added absolutely nothing in your last 10 minutes of you've been trying to say something.
But if I have,
I just.
But you also passed over a few things I've said.
No,
you passed over the fact that I campaigned for HRC.
It's not about you.
I would like to point out, like you're trying to place something that's equivalent to like somebody being born with blonde hair or blue eyes, with the idea that they're going to go and work in a coal mine, right? So like, oh, well, somebody's born with blue eyes and they work in a coal mine, same, right? Like if we're talking about people who are shooting elephants and rhinoceroses for ivory, right? That's something that they're choosing to do as opposed to them being born being gay, right? Do you understand the differentiation?
Yes,
Like
but if at the same time, I'll mention this, I don't think the fact that I asked, and I mean this again to try and hopefully steer the conversation back to whatever you guys want to talk about. But if I mention that, like, you guys are discounting points I've brought up about policy, about politics, about interpersonal experience as I've actually had, then like, alluding to genocide and stuff like this, it's just that doesn't change my mind on how I've started to approach this.
Well, Nate,
who mentioned genocide?
Nate, I was reading the history of violence, right? Giving some context to the history of violence against LGBTQ plus people. And I got as far as the second point in religious influence. I got as far as Islam. And then you jumped in and gave some like, oh, well, in my personal experience around the gay people, we're currently talking about the history of violence. So your point was irrelevant to the topic that we were just covering. So that's the problem. It's not that we're discounting that, like that we're not going to address your life experience and anecdotes that you've gone through. We just had a whole swath of them before I started talking about the history of violence. But we got to try and like stay with the flow of the conversation, where things are going. You're going to get your time, and what you have to say is of value. But I think what you were saying was irrelevant, and it didn't add to the history of violence where we're currently on.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll just stay on mute for a second and let the conversation get back on track.
All right. Well, and just know I appreciate you being here. It's just anyways. The point 3, the medieval and early modern Europe. The Middle Ages saw a sharp increase in persecution. Sodomy laws were enacted across Europe, often targeting gay men. Punishments included burning at the stake, common in Spain, Italy, and France, hanging or drowning, practice in England and other parts of Northern Europe. Homophobia during this period was often tied to fears of moral corruption, heresy, and divine punishment. There's that divine punishment fear coming in again. Colonialism and global spread of anti-LGBTQ plus laws. European colonial powers exported homophobic laws to their colonies. British colonial rule, in particular, spread anti-sodomy laws across Africa, India, and the Caribbean, many of which remain in place today. These laws often combined European Christian morals with punitive measures, contributing to systematic violence against LGBTQ plus individuals in formerly colonized regions. The Holocaust. Under Nazi Germany, 1933 to 1945, gay men were persecuted, imprisoned, and murdered. Between 5,000 and 15,000 men were sent to concentration camps under paragraph 175 of German law criminalizing homosexuality. Many wore the pink triangle, a symbol later reclaimed by the LGBTQ plus rights movement. And one of the reasons why I'm reading this, by the way, everyone, because a lot of people do not know this. Like if you talk to people about, the Holocaust, they don't realize that like blacks and gays, for example, here were also persecuted, although in smaller numbers because there were smaller numbers of those people known.
But I think isn't it known, Travis? So like the Nazis went after trans people first.
Oh,
like,
yeah, sure.
There were trans people back in the 30s, right? And that was the first people that they fucking went after.
Yeah, when they say LGBTQ plus here, they're referring to trans people as well. So so we're a few more points here, then we're going to open the conversation, I promise. 20th century state, and I hope we get some religious people in here who believe homosexuality is a sin to join the conversation. 20th century state-sanctioned violence. The 20th century saw both state-sanctioned executions and extrajudicial killings. The Soviet Union, LGBTQ plus people were persecuted under Stalin, with homosexuality classified as a mental illness or criminal behavior. United States, while not murdered outright by the state, many LGBTQ plus people were targeted through Lavender Scare, which hunts, arrests, and witch hunts, arrests, and institutionalization. Middle East and Africa, some countries implemented Sharia-based laws punishing homosexuality with death, including Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Sudan. Number 7, hate crimes and violence in the modern era. 1960s to present, despite progress in LGBTQ plus rights, hate crimes, including murders, have persisted. High-profile cases like the murders of Harvey Milk, 1978, Brandon Tina, 1993, and Matthew Shepard, 1998, highlighted the ongoing dangers LGBTQ plus individuals face. Massacres like the Pulse nightclub shooting 2016 in Orlando, Florida, targeted LGBTQ plus communities specifically. Ongoing challenges. In the 21st century, anti-LGBTQ plus violence remains a significant issue. In some countries, Uganda, Chechnya, and Iran, LGBTQ plus individuals face death sentences, lynchings, or state-sponsored purges. Hate crimes against LGBTQ plus people, including murders, occur in nations with legal protections, highlighting the persistence of societal prejudice. And here's the final point, the fight for justice and remembrance. LGBTQ plus advocacy groups have worked tirelessly to combat violence and commemorate those lost. Memorials, sites like the Matthew Shepard Memorial and Holocaust remembrance events honor victims of anti-gay violence. Legal reform. Activism has led to the repeal of anti-sodomy laws and the establishment of hate crime protections in many countries. Cultural shifts. Education and visibility campaigns continue to challenge homophobia and foster acceptance. I view homophobia as one of the great common evils that still exists in the conversations around people within my own culture. I hear it all the time. Did you see that guy? What a fucking faggot. Like, I hear that. That's going to get this episode demonetized, by the way. That's okay. But, you know, I still see that amongst friends and family, those same attitudes. And I live in a pretty progressive family. You know, some of the elder people in my family are not progressive, but like, this is still a big problem. And that's why there's these demonstrations and parades, and people always want to like zoom in and focus on, okay, some guy was nude and dancing in the parade, and that's the focus. It's not the focus of why this is being done in the first place and why it's important. But the mic is open. What do people have to say about homosexuality? Again, the proposition today is that homosexual is as good as heterosexual. Does anyone disagree with that?
I have no disagreements there. Like, I wouldn't even put it in the same as like they're the same. Like, it's just I wouldn't even need to like make the description of like they're same or equal or what. They're just people, right?
Well, the reason why I think the reason why I think that claim is important, Scott, is because it's never said, because often people would come back like challenging them with the naturalistic fallacy of like, oh, but it's not natural, even though a cursory bit of investigation will show them that it is natural. And also the argument that we couldn't procreate anymore is obviously flushed down the toilet now. We can procreate through homosexuality. There's no problem with it. So I'm interested.
I agree. I guess my point is just, it shouldn't even be an issue in the first place, is the way that I see it. Like why does anybody fucking care?
Yeah.
Why does anybody care unless they're trying to control other people's behavior? That's like the only thing that I can see why people actually care about homosexuality is whether or not they can control another person's behavior.
Yeah.
And they're hard stop. I mean, I don't see any other way out of that.
Let's go to Canaman, and then it looks like Hugh Janus unmuted. Let's go to Canaman first, though.
Yeah, I see it exactly that way. It's normal, it's natural, and to those who would say it isn't, is just another way of otherizing them, so that they can look at them less, which gives themselves permission to treat them as less. And that's just one of the disgusting things that I think society would do better without, and that's the otherizing. I have no problem with homosexuals. I think that they're natural. It's normal. I didn't grow up with them. I live with members of the LGBT community in my own home, and I learned a lot, and it helped me to become a better person and not a bitter person.
Thanks for
Well
sharing.
said.
Thank you.
Hugh, do you have something? You unmuted for a sec there.
Oh no, I was just gonna mention that to Buck. I've heard people express it like not necessarily about controlling other people, but some people just they do find like a general disgust in it, and like anything they find a disgust in, they're gonna try to talk down or go against it, right? So it's not. I don't know if it's necessarily about control.
But even in that disgust, like if somebody finds something disgusting, that they're going to talk against it by definition, right? What you mentioned, Hugh, is they're trying to control what's going on by definition, right? I mean, isn't that sort of the case?
Yes, but what I'm saying is like technically, like what you're saying is correct, but what I'm saying is like it may be kind of like a visceral reaction, like I don't know how to explain it, but it may not be just because they don't want them to do that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff people do that don't care about it. It's just like that particular thing. I don't know. I've heard people say this sentiment.
I would say what happens with visceral reaction when it turns into practical application. That's going to be the fucking huge issue, I think.
Yeah, but you're right. Ultimately, it is trying to control the lifestyle. But I was just kind of like saying like some people where their reaction comes from, not necessarily like a power control.
Yeah,
but
that's actually Hugh. You bring up an excellent point about disgust, because I hear this a lot, and I go down this road with a lot of people who say this to me in conversation. Obviously, in the Pangburnian way, good faith and helpful. But I go down this road with them and I say, okay, describe what you mean by you're disgusted by this. They're like, oh, I don't want to see that. Okay, but you don't. There are many things that you might not want to see that don't necessarily meet the criteria of disgust. So it's like it's and I wonder, like, if someone's looking at pornography, right? They're scrolling through pornography, they're looking at different videos, and say they are quote unquote disgusted by let's say male homosexuality, and they are a male, and they're scrolling through pornography and they happen to accidentally click on a male on male porn video, and they say that they are disgusted by this, and they happen to see a bit of it. Does that mean their masturbation session is over because they're disgusted? Or do you think they're really just going to like, oh, I didn't mean to click on that. Where's the stuff I was trying to get at? I don't think that doesn't really sound
like it doesn't need to mean anything.
That doesn't really
like
sound
it
like
shouldn't mean anything more than how I hate onions. And so if there's onions in the food, I just don't eat.
That's what I mean. Like they take a bite out of it. It's like, I found one onion.
Laws are not being passed against onions.
No, but that's a good point. I like the sandwich point because the sandwich might have a little bit of mustard that got on it accidentally, and it's like you tear off that part of the sandwich and then you finish your sandwich. This is a person that doesn't like mustard. Are they really disgusted by mustard if they're going to sit there continuing to eat their sandwich? I don't think that's disgust. I think so most people I talk to about that, when they're like, oh, I just find it disgusting, but I want them to live their life and be free, but I just find it disgusting. It's like, I give them that example. At least it gets them thinking about, okay, maybe disgust is the wrong way of of describing this. And maybe this is just a cultural meme that's been passed on, that if you're a heterosexual male, you're supposed to say that about like homosexual sex, like, oh, it disgusts me, that means I'm straight. That's kind of the vibe I get when I have conversations with specifically males about this.
Yeah, I find it disgusting, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to blow dudes in an airport bathroom. That's
Prometheus, you're unmuted.
That was my plan the whole time.
Yeah.
I just find it funny that every time the Republican National Convention rolls into town, that Grindr crashes.
exactly, dude.
Look, we have
100%.
We have some new members.
Yeah, the log cabin Republicans.
Yeah. What up, Prometheus? Did you have anything to add?
Howdy. No, I'm still getting a feel for what's happening, or how the talk is going.
Yeah, cool. We have
Thank you.
we have some new members. We have someone named Definitely Not Atheist. Feel free to unmute if you have anything to say. We always like to give the mic to new members when they show up, and if you disagree with everything that's been said or whatever, that's all cool. You'll get only good faith, helpful interactions in return. So anyone who's new, feel free to unmute and have your say. Or if you're not new and you have something to add, go ahead. The mic is open at this point. I thought we would have a bunch of Christians in the room today. We have Mr.
You
Max,
are wrong.
I think is new. But that's interesting. Like there's a oh, we got a Muslim right here. Oh, that would be excellent. Let's we should get Mr. Max take. Go ahead, Max. You have the mic. Are you there, sir?
You got the mic.
Yeah, Mr. Max.
Oh, hey.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, my friend.
Hello.
I agree with so many people about homosexual or whatever. But let's be straight for it, okay? We know some guy with a guy. It could hurt your hormones when you stretch your body down there. And sometimes the guys can't sit down. It's bad for you. Okay. You are gay. Keep it to yourself. Don't tell the people.
Well,
that's how it's work with us.
Could we not?
And there is some country accept you.
Yeah.
There is Arab country accept you.
Yeah, there are Arab countries that will accept you, but why should they have to keep their homosexuality away from people's eyes, and you're allowed to, show your heterosexuality to other people and express it?
It should be a sacred thing.
It's also Indonesia and
it's a sacred
Bangladesh as
thing
well.
for us. So.
Oh, so you're
Is
saying
that right, Max? Isn't it also Indonesia and Bangladesh as well?
Yeah, they don't show their relationships. It's respectful.
And why should anyone care what you think is respectful?
Well, it's different cultures. Not everyone do that.
Right. Yeah. So I'm saying, I guess a better question would be, why do you think that's a good cultural idea? Do you think you might have some kind of like purity kink or a secrecy kink when it comes to relationships or sexual relationships between people? Like, why do you think you think that's a good idea? Is it your faith or?
It's not just the faith. My apologies. It's not my first language. Anyway, when you keep your culture or your relationship to yourself and not to go to chase everyone, you have to do that, or you have to do that, or I love to do that, so come try it with me. It's make the people feel more special.
Oh, I see. So you're saying,
but not everyone's saying that.
Right.
Yeah, it's like someone saying, "Come eat banana with me," and someone else say no.
Okay.
But you have to eat it. They say no.
Yes, but I do think a lot of the modern movement for human rights was also about it's been about just like free speech on social media, and like some people not wanting to get arrested if they post something that they probably shouldn't have posted.
Yeah,
Isn't
if
that
you
also the case?
shouldn't post it because not everyone like to see something like that. There are some people like to torture animals, and I think that is crazy for me.
Well, this isn't. I just don't think there's an equivalence there.
Let me give it to you like that. There are some people like to post nudes, okay? Nudes pictures with kids. Do you tell me that is okay?
Are they equivalent to consenting adults versus kids? Do you see no difference?
Did you get what I mean right now?
Yeah, I think I understand.
Muhammad didn't see
I
a
don't think
difference.
I don't think they're totally equivalent to.
Well,
I think
when
it's
there
even.
is
I think
something
there's even a
illegal
better way to say that.
inside a different country, they just blur it.
If
They have the right to do that.
20-year-old, 30-year-old men want to have sex with each other, you see no difference between that and a 30-year-old man having sex with a 5-year-old child. Same thing.
5-year-olds? Jesus.
Yeah, there is some people doing crazy stuff those days.
I went to, okay, fine, 10-year-old.
Prometheus, I think, Max, I think you're saying that there is a difference?
Yes, indeed. Oh, indeed. Yes, I am. A huge difference. I'm asking him if he sees a difference between the two.
Well, the difference by the age, it's about how I'm going to tell you about that.
I'm not a monster, just to be clear.
Yeah, Prometheus, try to let him finish. Max, I think the question to you is, just to make it as clear as we can, do you see a difference between two willing, informed, consenting adults engaging in a sexual relationship and an adult and a child engaging in a sexual relationship? Do you see the difference between
There
those
is
things?
a huge difference between a child.
That was
even don't know what is the right and the wrong.
You don't know what is right and
adult,
wrong?
they talk and that is okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone's promoting that here or saying it's okay. Yeah, I mean, what don't you think, Max, don't you think it would be better if you could just express and live authentically based on your own true authentic self, be free to express that out in society? And don't you see the dangers and to one's own well-being by having yourself trapped from society?
I rather to have myself trapped, okay, if something can hurt me, if you know what I mean. Let me just be straightforward. When there is two guys doing what I told you, which is, can I say sex or something like that right here?
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah.
Okay. When there is two guys having sex, that change their hormones. That make them gay too.
What?
No,
But if they are
guys
gay, they
having
keep it
sex
to themselves.
I think
but
that's
that doesn't change their hormones. There's nothing.
Yeah, that does actually.
No,
Well,
when you have
let's
fun
hormones.
the first time.
Let's fact check that right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a
Right
a
here.
wild proposition.
Right here. You can ask me.
And also you're
ask
kind of
chat.
alluding, you came in alluding to anal sex. Anal sex isn't just reserved for two males. Like anal sex can happen in any heterosexual relationship. I mean, people should try it. People should explore their bodies. If they don't, I guess what I mean by that is like, don't feel like you shouldn't try something because of some other person's traditional idea of how it's like bad for you. Like go get yourself a good sex education, even if it's trying to be kept from you, and don't let other people yuck your yums, is another way of saying that.
I do want to say I just looked it up. I just looked it up real quick though, just real quick. No, according to current scientific understanding, engaging in gay sex does not significantly alter hormone levels in a person, as studies have shown that there are no noticeable differences in hormone levels between individuals who identify as gay and those who identify as heterosexual, meaning gay sex does not cause hormonal changes that are distinct from heterosexual sex.
Exactly, because what you might be reading there, Max, because you might have studied this. It is true that during sex, you can have temporary changes in hormone levels, increased endorphins, oxytocin release, testosterone fluctuations, cortisol changes. But that's true of all sex, not just homosexual sex.
I know.
Okay.
But what I was pointing about it's the anal sex. Respectfully, when you have the anal sex, the people even sometimes can't eat some type of food that stop them from
What is your source?
Well, I mean, this sounds like a guy. This sounds like it's coming from a guy who loves anal sex. I mean, it sounds like he's a fucking.
Hey, I tell you what I am.
Well, like some Max, some people like you understand that all bodies are different. Some people can have an anal sex session and go out and eat Thai food. Like it sounds like you think that there's always
I know.
some kind of
There is some people die from it.
Some people.
But there is more harm from it being good.
Let me
better to leave it.
I want to see what we know. Do people die from anal sex? Let's check this. Because here at Pangburn, we like to get
very
the
rough
facts.
anal sex.
I don't think anyone ever has.
I'm sure.
Yeah, the rough one.
I mean, there was a guy that literally died.
I'm sure there are people who've died from very rough anal sex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the case.
Okay.
Yeah, like here's a quick thing.
I mean, it's one way to go out, I suppose.
Yeah, it's like, well, here's one thing I'll say is like everyone should be practicing safe sex anyway. Don't do things that are gonna, harm your well-being. You know, don't just go all in on something that you're not familiar with. That do this safely, please. But no, people do not generally die from anal sex when it's practiced safely. However, like any other sexual activity, it carries some risks if done. If not done with proper care. Forceful, improper anal sex can cause tearing in rectal area. Infections, existing health conditions can be exacerbated. Air embolisms, but the practicing safe versions of this. And by the way, there are just like there are so few cases of this. There's no statistics on it. Like it's not counted. It's statistically irrelevant.
Okay. I don't mean to cut
it's
you,
probably
but,
from the constipation of not being able to get it back out.
Who knows, right?
Okay. What I was want to say.
But what
like
is your
I said
Muslim,
to
Max?
anal sex, it's bad for you because it doesn't come back
Max,
when you use it.
Max, how do you what do you think about homosexuality through the lens of Islam? Because I assume you're a Muslim, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about homosexuality by the standard of Muhammad and the Quran?
Okay, it's actually really forbidden. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
You being homosexual, it's forbidden for you because it could give you more harm from good. And that's what I can tell you.
When you say it gives
do you want me to lie to you, or do you want me to tell you about something happened?
No, I love good faith interlocution. So I want people to be honest here.
Okay.
So yeah, but I would say I would say that's an evil idea. What do you have to say about that?
It is evil. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, you think homosexuality is evil? I'm saying it's an evil
No, not homosexuality.
Oh.
No, yeah, he's agreeing with you, Trav.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that, you just kind of block that part of Islam out of how you digest it, or how do you square that in your faith?
I will tell you the truth. In the past, I loved someone and I left them.
Sorry, what was
and
that?
good for me, I left them. I will tell you something else. When there is young people having gay relationships, when they go to the anal stuff, when they grow up, sometimes that be a problem with their leg. They can't walk.
Their legs?
Yeah.
That's pseudoscience, dude. I don't think that's true. I don't.
No. I tell you, there is so many people have that problem.
And what? Okay, can you share with me what data you would use to support that belief? Like, where did you hear that?
my friends who have that same problem.
Okay, but if your friend claims to have that problem from anal sex, do you just believe that, and then you just believe that that's the case generally?
You said you want something really to give you the good reason.
Yeah,
right.
I'm saying that I would consider that a good reason.
When some people have diabetes, okay.
Wouldn't that be an overgeneralization? Wouldn't that be an overgeneralization fallacy to say that because your friend claimed that he has problems with his legs from anal sex, and you generalize that to be the case? Isn't that an overgeneralization fallacy if you believe that about anal sex?
Not just one guy. There are so many people.
Can anal sex
and write diabetes about it?
Yeah, so,
Mr. Max.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind, could I ask?
Go ahead, ask.
I just wondered, have you looked anywhere outside of your friends telling you stories to...
There is another one, and I did see some people from America. They told me they can't stand up those days.
So
yeah, but
they are my age, actually. I think 27, 25, something like that.
Outside of anecdotal experience of hearing other people talk about it, is there some like stat or some other objectively verifiable way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is actually. When you are talking about I'm sorry, I don't know how to speak about it like that. The anus, when it is stretched up. Sometimes the people have diabetes and they don't fix it so fast. They don't go to the doctors. That gives them negative effect.
Where are you getting this information?
When you go getting diabetes,
is there like an affiliation?
Check what's going to happen.
Like the anus statistic community or something where you can find a stat on. Like I'm looking for something other than like a story of what happened to someone.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, let's stop it with that story.
Diabetes is directly related to the pancreatic, your pancreas and how well it works. Do you think homosexuality is related to the tightness of one's butthole? If a butthole is loose.
Okay. I think we did have fun enough, and I'm going to get out of the chat right now.
Okay.
Is that good enough for you?
Thanks, Max, and feel free to engage in future chats. It's great to have a Muslim here. We have a few Muslims, but
it's okay. Just put me in the corner. Don't get me out in public again.
All right. Thanks, Max. Okay, what does everyone else have to say? Again, the proposition we're wrestling with today, homosexual is as good as heterosexual. Does anyone disagree with that claim that homosexuality is as good as heterosexuality? Does anyone disagree?
In terms of some are you asking for my subjective opinion?
However you conceive of and judge moral dilemmas or moral questions based on your own morality, do you think homosexuality is as good as heterosexuality?
You know, it's funny because it seems like as time goes on, the more homosexual thoughts I have. And I was thinking, like, if a really good friend of mine asked me, you know, I'm going to kill myself or something, I want you to have sex with me or do something, right?
Yeah.
I think I would have to consider doing that.
Oh.
Now, again,
okay, well, Faye, then I have a proposition for you.
yeah, I was going to say, I kind of set that up. Not in terms of preference, I would say, but more so moral necessity, as you alluded to, maybe from like a moral standpoint. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you had a metaphorical gun to my head, I'd have to say heterosexuality is more preferable is what I would like it to be than homosexuality.
And what would give it that what would make it more preferable to you?
I have to go with my primitive ape instincts and desires that seem to come from an unconscious place that I have no control over. But when I do the conscious rationalization, as I alluded to, if my friend, for whatever reason, to save someone's life or something, sure, I can go against that unconscious instinct.
Well,
ahead.
That's interesting that you lean that way, because for me, it's a simple issue of, I use well-being as a moral metric. I see no difference by a moral metric standard between homosexuality and heterosexuality. I just see these as sexual expressions of the human being. I view one as good as the other, as their own, in judging their each individual.
Sure. Yeah. No. Morally, if the context is morally and not preferential, then yeah, I 100% agree.
Oh, I mean, okay. Yeah. So you were going.
You want to hear a hot take? Super hot take.
Yeah.
Sure.
If I had the choice of being gay or being heterosexual in Alabama growing up, probably would have chosen heterosexual. Would have been a way easier life for me.
There is there is a perfectly reasonable, rational, pragmatic argument as to why that would be a good choice by a human well-being standard.
But it's not a choice.
No, but I'm saying if you had a choice in your hypothetical.
I was just iterating it.
But if we were to use that hypothetical and now ask the question, if we could all choose which one to be, would there be a morally superior one? And I don't think so.
That's what this proposition today is dealing with. One way or the other, because the common argument before we had the technology for it was like, what would happen to humanity? We couldn't procreate. But of course, if we had to procreate, just if everyone all of a sudden was homosexual, we could still procreate, right? Like,
right.
And honestly, right now, when we look at like reproduction rates, homosexuality plays no part in it at all. Human beings are just reproducing at a lower rate, regardless of homosexuality.
Yeah, unless you're looking at the Mormon Church or something, when each man has like 90 children.
Yeah, I mean, I think a bigger argument is like people feeling comfortable and like having the idea that they can support a family. They got enough money coming in to raise a family. That's the biggest fucking thing. Mm-hmm. I don't think homosexuality plays that much of a part in reproductive rates, which is funny.
I'm writing a message into the server right now. I'm saying any Christians want to defend the Bible on homosexuality.
I know somebody who might answer your call.
Oh yeah, let's get Star in here. She'll be in here like a dirty shirt.
I've been waiting.
I would be willing to not necessarily argue this point specifically, but why it isn't like accepted, really.
Sure.
As equals.
Go ahead.
So I guess the main point is that it perverts and corrupts the reasoning on like the sacredness of what it is, like the creation of life through the sexual acts of
a wet penis. Yeah, like you're concerned about how that penis is getting wet. Is that you're like
that's one possible.
You're more concerned about what hole the
sanctity of vaginal lubrication.
I think he's more getting to the natural law.
It's an insane gift, though, isn't it? Like you can simplify it however you like, but it creates life. Like it's.
I don't know if I'd call it a gift. It's like sometimes like,
Well, of course, that's just from my understanding of, you know.
I know what you're saying. You're representing
Christian and all that.
the Christian arguments. So let me go through this quickly because we should touch on this. So, okay, quickly, biblical prohibitions. We're going to focus on Christianity here, such as Leviticus 18:22 and Romans 1:26-27 explicitly condemn homosexual behavior as sinful. And then we go to the natural law argument that homosexuality is unnatural because it does not align with the natural order intended by God, particularly concerning procreation. And then there's the creation narrative. God created humanity as male and female, Genesis 1:27, and instituted heterosexual marriage as the ideal union. Then there's the slippery slope argument. Accepting homosexuality leads to moral relativism, where any behavior could be justified, including polygamy or incest. There's the threat to the sanctity of marriage. Homosexual unions undermine the tradition. Traditional concept of marriage as a sacred institution between a man and a woman. And then the homosexuality as a, quote, lifestyle choice argument by Christians, that homosexuality is a sinful choice, not an innate characteristic, and individuals can change through repentance and therapy. Then we get into some scary areas of conversion therapy. And then another one, homosexuality as sin, but not the person. Quote, love the sinner, hate the sin. Christians claim they can oppose homosexuality while still loving LGBTQ plus individuals. And then number 8 here, Jesus did not condone homosexuality. The argument being that Jesus never explicitly affirmed same-sex relationships, implying a disapproval. So there's a lot of different common Christian arguments that are born out of some of these tenets and biblical statements.
All of them based on a book.
Yeah, all of them based on what Paul wrote down and what people who claim to be divinely inspired wrote down. I don't find them compelling at all. Does anyone here find them compelling?
Dude, even before Paul, it was a series of telephone. You guys ever play that game in elementary school?
Yeah. The fucking original transmission history was oral traditions. What was Candyman saying?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just thinking the lack of support for homosexuality in the Bible is doing a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to the argument against it.
Yeah. I actually, like, we can look at the quotes. Like, a lot of Christians are actually gonna argue that Leviticus 18:22 and Romans 1:26-27 people are misreading those. So let's take a look at those right now.
Can I share something?
Yeah, you bet.
As you're looking it up. Just as an atheist, I think John Mayer's song with Katy Perry does a little bit more because it talks about like human experience and stuff.
Cool. Yeah.
So like for me, that comes off stronger than Leviticus, but
yeah. Can you describe maybe some of the lyrics or a little more on that?
It just says you cannot make someone stop dreaming of who they're dreaming of. So it's very rich writing.
Yeah.
Cool.
I do want to say Candyman went down the road of positive and negative rights, right? So unless there's a positive right portrayed that says being gay is okay, the negative rights aspect is going to say unless it's written down, this is a specific right, then that right is not codified. Right? Is that where you're going, Candyman?
Yeah, kind of. It just seems like, because Jesus didn't come out directly in support of it, that
correct.
He didn't really come out and say, you can't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the lack of support is doing a ton of heavy lifting for Christians who claim that the Bible is against it. And like I said, or like Travis said, I believe it's rooted more in Leviticus.
Well, that's a notion of negative rights as opposed to a position of positive rights where you have it. Yeah.
Because Jesus also didn't come out and say you can use dildos either, right? But no one seems to focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
And a better book if it would.
It would be it'd be a way better
He
book.
He was pretty cool with hanging out with a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
Chilling in loincloths and shit.
He was.
And are you trying to tell me that none of those
hung out
dudes
with hookers all the time?
And are you trying to tell me that none of those dudes got tired of just like jerking off by themselves and there was no back-to-back action at least going on there?
Back to back,
dude. You're telling me nobody ever gave anybody else the stranger? Come on now.
Well, back in ancient Greek societies, there were many men who lived with other men and would be married technically, but it wasn't necessarily sexual. There were homosexual relations.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, it seems as though it would be common, since Christianity especially seems to get a lot from ancient Greece, if you really think about it. Perhaps some of that culture as well would go, into Rome.
I would avoid going to that direction, but
why so?
Because we're not dealing with gay as we understand the term gay in a lot of those situations. In most of those situations.
I mean, yeah, it is true that I think both of those things are true. That what Perry's saying is true, like gay as conceptualized at that time, or even looking at it through a certain lens, a historical lens, as we would today, we can recognize that relationships in general have developed and changed over time, and what the, let's say, societal norms of any kind of relationship would look like today versus back in Marcus Aurelius's time. And from what I remember of Marcus Aurelius's meditations, he thought that we spent way too much time talking about like human sexuality, and like he thought it was just like, basically a waste of time to be talking about it so much. But I would say during his experience of it during his time, it wasn't as scrutinized, because some of these religions that became popularized just were not around yet to cause so much strife for people who had different sexual orientations.
My audio.
That's not what I was getting at, but okay.
Could you actually repeat yourself, Tivo? Because my audio literally cut out as soon as you started talking, coincidentally. Yeah. So could you say that again for me? I was talking about just how, cultures could seamlessly transition into other cultures that were directly influenced by it, and then you responded to that, and my audio literally cut out. Could you repeat yourself?
It's not a conversation I want to have.
All right.
Never mind. I'll just back off.
No worries. I didn't hear what your response was.
So let's all just have some fun, like trying to interpret these words. Do not have sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman. That is detestable. So what does that mean to everyone here?
That's not relevant because Christ's sacrifice got away with the Old Testament laws.
But I think that sounds like hooker rules. Like, you just don't kiss a hooker, right? Like, you can fuck all you want, you just don't kiss a hooker.
Here's what I want to know when I read that first. I want to know what the Bible generally means by detestable. So in the Bible, the term detestable or abomination in some translations is used to describe actions, practices, or objects considered offensive, impure, or contrary to God's will. So maybe this is just offensive. Okay, we're getting a lot of sound from someone down there. Shamir.
I got it.
I think Shamir, you got to mute, brother or sister. So yeah, like one could interpret that as just like, this might be something that offends God. Does that really mean it should be condemned? I guess a lot of people would say yes.
I think every time I've encountered biblical arguments, they've been in like the context of there's two contexts. So every time I've heard a biblical debate, it's either been a what's it called, like an academic setting, so sort of a smaller world thing, or a larger world, like social media. And so I think a lot of people, I know there's a lot of people that do put a lot on the Bible, but my understanding is there's not a lot of theological evidence that any biblical text contains, that contains some sort of like didactic, sort of pronunciation against what happens, like every time someone's born and they're homosexual.
I think that would be a very unpopular thing to say in most Christian circles, even the like
Correct.
professional apologists. Now, I agree with you that like I've heard like professional theologians support like, and I believe it's John Lennox who supports an idea of, there is no explicit,
for sure.
Yeah, like there is no explicit law against homosexuality or even gay marriage. I think John Lennox supports that. Don't quote me on that, folks. Please do take a look at that. But he might be one of them. But if not, you'll find apologists out there and theologians who, just like what Nate was saying.
It was just my sort of personal experience. I didn't mean to like. I don't know like how deep that is, but
I'm pretty sure Ken Ham has come out pretty strongly against any sort of homosexual behavior.
Oh yeah, the Ken Ham's pretty. He's gone full ham on it.
I think the Bible is large enough and confusing enough where any apologetic could make any argument about any proposition and use context in certain ways to manipulate the intention that they're trying to have perceived.
100%.
Yeah, I think the disingenuousness, anytime I hear something like that, again, it's one of those things that, like it's, I think seeing repeated disingenuousness sort of decreases social trust. And now there's sort of things that you need to have like a discussion or a debate about, why it's important in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so
I do think that's a good reason why people have been going away from Christianity in droves, is by that exact reason that you just gave. Everybody can have like their own interpretation, and people have their own interpretations, and they see that all is not equal, right?
And that's also putting a lot on the theological side of things, I think too. To pretend that like scholarly work on whichever side it lies is actually what gets taught in non-denominational versus other religions as well.
Yeah, Nate, you nailed it. Like the dealing with the popular low resolution takes, it tends to be the most important if you're someone who has a moral quest like mine that wants to reach people and talk about the popular opinions that are going on in the home. Like I have a lot of, colleagues and people who do similar stuff to what I do.
Yeah, for sure.
And I see them burning a lot of energy on the highly academic, pretentious abstractions of scripture and they are in a parish of one. They're literally dealing with a theologian who's like in a parish of their own on this. And really they're not touching many people with that. Most of the comments you read underneath are like, I don't believe that. That's not what we believe in my church. It's like, well, fuck.
Well, when you get I agree with that. When you get a bunch of 15, 16-year-olds yelling about something,
I wish it was only students that age, but I take your point. Yeah.
Yeah,
or students is a better word. That's true.
I see that with Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is a parishionership of one.
Yeah. Jordan Peterson is in a parish of one, and that parish changes daily, it seems. But
yep.
Look, God calls on you in the Bible to do a natural reading of scripture, and naturally opinions change. So
if I could take it back to the question or whatever.
Sorry.
So I sort of have 2 points here. Now, one of them, you're sort of already heard, the disrupting and perverting the sanctity, or not sanctity, but sacredness of the creation of life and all that. But now this isn't really based off of I've researched this like crazy and all that. This is just sort of something I've heard, but would it not make sense to sort of see it as detestable for like health reasons and all that, like AIDS and all that? I'm not super researched on this, but that's just what I've heard.
Yeah, I mean there are I mean AIDS is no question that AIDS is a deadly disease, but practicing safe sex just like against any other disease, I think is the answer there. And it wasn't only homosexuals who were affected by AIDS. Anal sex, which tends to be the
but sodomy is also it's frowned upon, so it's a sin.
Yeah, but what it's the reason why I mentioned that is because we are talking about homosexuality today, but I think your point is more towards sodomy than homosexuality.
Yeah. Did they find it detestable though because they had that now what we call modern day technology and information about that stuff, or did they do it for cultural and political and poor ideas reasons? I mean, they weren't doing it for the sake of health. I doubt. Like circumcision, by the way.
Yeah.
It can have, getting snipped, supposedly, I need to do more research, but I believe has some health benefits to it.
So,
and again, back in ancient illiterate peasant, wherever, they weren't doing it because for that reason. I doubt.
No,
I mean, I won't say for sure, but I highly doubt that that's the reason that they did it. It was something political or cultural.
Well, the first
and a poor idea.
Yeah, the first instance is based on my reading, because this is a topic of deep moral interest to me. But I believe it was Egyptian priests who first started practicing circumcision for fashion reasons. And then eventually,
some terrible idea.
We know the history of Judaism and the surrogate sacrifice, as opposed to a child sacrifice or something more grand. You can sacrifice the foreskin. Like there's a lot of stuff there, but I would caution people to go to doctorsopposingcircumcision.org, which is a fantastic resource to that will show you that the so-called benefits to circumcision, and I don't want to get on circumcision tonight, but I always feel a need to express this. But the so-called benefits are equivalent to, like, if you started coring out the breast tissue of little baby girls who are born, you eliminate 100% the chance of them having breast cancer. So it's like you could do that, but are you fucking insane? That's kind of how I view the issue. But we will do an episode for everyone listening on routine infant circumcision soon, I promise.
Either way, those guys way back then weren't doing it for any of those reasons.
Yeah.
So
they were doing it for Bada Mantuko Zalakin Halahu reasons. But we have Le Doctor Troll. Troll, did you have anything to add?
I mean, so far there's nothing really I disagree with. Being homosexual doesn't really affect anyone. No one's really victimized by it, and I'm not personally religious. I don't follow the Bible. I don't follow Islam or anything. And I personally don't see God would intervene or even care about something as small as that. The human population will always continue to reproduce and live on anyway. In our modern society, it's just not an issue. It's not significant.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. I don't claim to know what God would or would not do if there is a God. I don't think there is, but if it is the biblical God, he seems to care a lot about it, at least enough to like show his disgust for it. And I mean, the Muslims around the world have also been influenced to carry out, death penalties for such acts. So, let's just hope such a God does not exist.
Indeed.
In my opinion.
I agree.
Do you ever act, Travis, or anyone who don't believe in God, do you ever act in accordance to what your ideal interpretation of what an all good God would be? Do you ever act in accordance to that hypothetical?
No.
Yes, 100%.
I do, personally, quite often.
That's just the world we live in. But yes, I don't. My interpretation of the Bible, even when I was like, I would say a strong Roman Catholic without having deep theological faith, was that the conception of heaven and hell wasn't delineated in such a way that I don't think it was really speaking about the way people choose to act. I don't think it was speaking about responsibility as one of the conditions of salvation. So it was against a lot of, I think, the older teachings of the church as well, which always, that aspect always attracted me to things. But
this is a tangential question, by the way, so I don't want to get too bogged down on it. And I realize that. I just wanted to ask it real quick.
It's all good, Perry. That's a fantastic question. And acting as though God exists is another topic we need to handle because, Jordan Peterson, being one of the most popular intellectuals on this planet, has famously argued that he acts as though the Christian God exists.
Doesn't even have to be the Christian, just your ideal interpretation of what you think the all good God would be. But yeah.
And sorry, I'm clearing my throat. It's like a nuke landing when people realize they have the complete control to be a decent person and to, you can live your life and never be mean one time. You can live your life and you can try and do less harm with the things you do. That's like a nuke dropping.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Like, it sounds gnar, but I mean that, like, truly.
No, Nate, that is... It seems simple, but that is also a profound statement that people should remind themselves of. That they in the sense of what we can have control over, we have control over this stuff. I'm a determinist, so I'm not going to go that far. But what we do have control over, or the illusion of control, I think that's an important, profound statement to make. What you just said. Our favorite local Christian Star has joined us. Star, do you have anything to say on the topic today? The topic is homosexuality is as good as heterosexuality. That's my belief. What's yours?
Hello, Star.
Oh, dear Jesus. I have a headache, and that's a loaded question. Am I the only Christian in the room right now?
Hey, I am here.
Well, I missed.
No, we have a couple Christians in the room.
Well, you just need to give a yes or no.
We're dealing with the question here, brother.
I know. I just thought I'd elaborate the fact that I exist.
Oh, hey, man.
Okay. Carry on. Hi, Travis.
Star, so what is your take on homosexuality? We've gone through all of the common Christian arguments for it, but it's nice to get individual takes on it if you're interested in sharing.
I haven't listened, so I don't know what you guys are.
To avoid repeating, essentially my argument was that homosexuality is inherently a sin, even though heterosexuality can be, perverted, just as homosexuality perverts the idea of, like the sacredness of a male and a female coming together to create life.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of sins in the Bible. And sins are basically anything that separates you from God. And our body being God's temple, and therefore meant to be pure and oh dear Jesus, this is too okay. So there are plenty of sexual immoralities. Okay, you having sex outside of marriage or before marriage, sexually immoral. Having multiple partners, sexually immoral. Going and having sex with someone else's wife, sexually immoral. Plenty of stuff. But you go and you basically go and condemning or hating someone because of their sin makes you a hateful person because Everyone has things that separate them from God. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. And going and pointing at someone and saying, oh, shame on you, you sinned, you sinned, you sinned, while you are in sin, is basically trying to pull the splinter out of someone else's eye before you pull the log out of someone else's. Okay? So before you point at someone else and says, God hates you, because you are committing this sin, you need to look at yourself and realize that you have your own sins that you commit. And no one is better than the other. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. There is none that is righteous, no, not one. And so I guess my whole thing is as a human being and a Christian, looking at the fact that every last human being on earth has committed sins and no one is perfect unless you're Jesus Christ yourself. I guess my whole perspective on the entire thing is, who would I prefer to be friends with? Someone intentionally harming others for their own benefit? Because to me, that's a worse crime than someone who goes and finds love in places in which God tells us not to go. All of it separates us.
All right.
Some of it I'm more tolerant to than others. And I think hate, the people who spew hatred and judgment and holier than thou-ness piss me off more than the people that are doing their best to get through life and may have made some wrong choices. God went and he went and he sat with the tax collectors and the prostitutes and the people who needed him, not the ones who thought they were above it all.
So Star,
he didn't like the hypocrite.
One response I have right off the bat is we have all the evidence in the world to suggest that homosexuality is not a choice, but you mentioned it like it was some kind of choice.
Okay. Well,
and Star, you're missing that Jesus turned over the tables in the temple first, but that's all good.
Okay. Well, Jesus turning over the tables in the temple has nothing to do with them being gay. That had to do with people going in the church and abusing it in order to make money and turning it into something it wasn't supposed to be, corrupting the church. But okay, I don't know where you were going with that, Nate, but go ahead and explain yourself how that has anything to do with people's sexual immoralities.
I just think it's about purity of spirit, and in terms of what I understand, purity of spirit and by faith alone. And I think Jesus is acting against the social sort of fray was an instance of courage that he showed. But,
okay. Yeah, basically going and trying to con people out of money for doves and whatever in order so that they could sacrifice and purify themselves, because that back then, there were procedures they went through, right? And to go and try to abuse the common man and try to make a profit off of that was something Jesus definitely looked down on. So I guess it would be the same. He would look the same way at mega churches, for example.
And yeah, and I think you mentioned too, Jesus spent time with he spent time with like prostitutes and stuff as well. I don't know if we discussed that like, is there parity between homosexuality and whatever else?
Sexual immorality. God doesn't. If you think that you can earn your way into heaven by being perfect, it's never going to work. The only way into heaven is through God's grace. And he didn't come to save people who thought they didn't need him. He came for the people who did. And as I stated earlier, I'd rather have a friend that struggles with a sin, because we all do. I do. You've seen me lose my temper. I am an emotional, freaking chaotic wreck. And for me to go and say, I am better than this person, and be like, what the hell? Because they might not be an angry, mad person that's always boiling underneath the surface. They have their own strengths. I don't get to go and say mine is better than yours or worse than yours. We're all like, as long as you're trying to get to Jesus, as long as you're doing your best to follow him, that's what counts. It's the process.
What's the one thing you cannot do to go to heaven?
There's a Bible verse that says that if you
It's blasphemy,
blaspheme
right?
the Holy Spirit, you're at risk. You're at risk.
At risk,
you have to-
because I'd say Jesus is a bitch that should suck my balls and lick my cock until he's fucking done, right?
Okay, Buck.
Okay.
Do you see the point that I'm making though, right? Like these words don't really mean anything. Do you understand?
Buck, I'm not going to engage with you and help put you at risk for freaking of your soul.
Well,
I've blasphemed so much in my life that this is the least of my worries at this point.
But is that blaspheming in good faith, or is it not? Or is it outward?
Let's not encourage him to go any further.
Well,
I've gone so much further.
Yeah.
Buck, I love you and I believe you have an eternal soul. And even if you don't agree with me, please don't scare the living shit out of me and break my heart.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
That's
you.
fair.
Now, a question. We got Lawrence here as well. But Star, one more follow up question. How do you think Jesus would treat homosexuals today in the world today? What would Jesus think about the LGBTQ plus movement?
I mean, he's not going to sugarcoat it and say, it's okay, you can do that. He's going to say, that separates you from God. Do you want to be with him or not? But at the same time, he's not going to go and judge, like, the people who are mean, they're at more risk. You know, it says that if you have hatred in your heart, it's like you're a fucking murderer. And so, you know, how many of us have hated? And so whatever I have, like, I'm saying hatred is more dangerous. That's all. And I'm sorry. Yes, I believe it's a sin. Yes, I believe it separates you from God. But I also believe lying is a sin. Stealing that pencil from your roommate because you really liked it and you're like, that's my pencil now. Whatever the case may be, they're all sins.
I want
all of them.
So does anyone have any questions or challenges for Star? Because once we move on from Star, I want to get Lawrence in because Lawrence has his hand up.
I do think where Star is going, like, I don't think it matters that there's any sort of proclamation of some sort of Holy Spirit that's telling people to do these things, right? So I think what's really important is human beings understood, like, getting too caught up in your hatred of other people is a bad thing for you, right? This is something that human beings just fundamentally recognize. We can see the detriment that it causes to other human beings, even to the person who's like so caught up in the hate. And I think it's more an understanding of like early ways for human beings to try to understand sociology. I think that's what religion sort of like plays into. It was our way of like trying to understand certain aspects of certain human behaviors. It says, oh yeah, well, if you're just like mean and hateful all the time, this is going to be a problem because I've seen people who are mean and hateful all the time, and it is a bad thing, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It says that people are supposed to know us by our love for each other. And it says that you're supposed to love God with all your heart, mind, body, and strength. And it says that you're supposed to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And it says that you're supposed to love your enemy. So tell me where hatred needs to be in the mix.
Well,
no,
hatred.
And ultimately, who gets to judge is not me. Like, discernment is one thing, but judgment, that belongs to God. It doesn't belong to me.
Yeah, but I would say, I would say burning
society.
I would say burning someone for being born a homosexual until for all time. That is where I find the most hatred in this entire narrative. That is the worst kind of punishment, right? I don't care if it comes from God or from an alien. There's no worse punishment or hatred than that, in my view, especially when God created them that way, because all of our ways of knowing from a scientific perspective tells us that people are born homosexual. This is genetic. This isn't meme level. This is gene level. So I think it's either it could be even, based on that standard, it is the utmost evil thing to create homosexuals than to condemn them and ask them to hide it or live in a closet for their entire life. But let's get Tart in. Tart, you had something. Then we got to get Lawrence in because Lawrence has been waiting patiently.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it seems strange to me that when this topic comes up, it strikes me as odd that when we ask why is homosexuality like immoral, there's a weird move that religious people make where they go, well, because God said so. But with respect to every other immoral thing that we talk about, there seems to be a further reason behind it. It's not just when we ask why is murder immoral, we don't go, well, because God said so. It's like we go, well, murder is immoral because it produces suffering, it causes harm to people, it destroys lives, it takes away their future, it makes people unhappy. We're going to talk about all these other morally relevant facts. But with homosexuality, it's just this extremely reductive, either it's unnatural, which obviously it's not, or it's going to be because God said so. And that's about all they've got. And that just strikes me as wholeheartedly just peculiar. What?
It's a heavily theorized sort of thing, but essentially, like, because of hedonistic acts in the past where somebody, when port addicts just need like more and more stronger sort of things to get the same kick out of it, right? Then it could lead to more and more taboo things, more strange things. So this is like way in the past, and somebody is just like, an addict to sexual acts, and so then they do homosexuality, which in turn creates more acts, and then it becomes a natural thing over time. Of course, that's just like a heavily theorized thing, and that's why I think that it exists, but that's just me.
Great. Well, thanks for the input. We have a bunch of people listening on YouTube. Everyone on YouTube, please take a second to smash that like button. Everyone here on Discord, make sure you have the YouTube stream open and you're engaging in the text chat on YouTube. But we have a lot of people text chatting on YouTube. They have a lot of interesting questions and claims that can be dealt with. Just make sure if you have YouTube open that you're muted, because there is a bit of delay on the YouTube feed compared to what we are, the real time at which we are engaging in conversation here. I want to bring Lawrence in. Lawrence, I have made the proposition today. I make the claim that homosexuality is just as good as heterosexuality based on my well-being standards. I don't see one better than the other. What do you think about that? And the floor is yours, sir.
Sure. Well, first, everyone's going to heaven, and Jesus said so when he said, every knee shall bow or bend, every head shall bow. So even if you have never believed Jesus is God, even if you're born in a Muslim family and have cursed Jesus every day of your life, after you die, you're going to heaven. Hitler is in heaven playing around with Anne Frank now. Okay, they're friends now. So as far as what Jesus said about homosexuality, it is detestable. As far as what Jesus did about homosexuality is he destroyed a city of homosexuals called Sodom. As far as what Jesus says to do about homosexuals is give love for evil. So, but as far as as what homosexuality is, there isn't anybody out there, probably, I can almost reasonably say that everyone has, embarrassed to bring this up, but probably masturbated in your life. There's been some time when you got the porno book out or watched a porn and whacked off.
Yep.
Yeah, three times today. Yeah, 3 times today. Yeah.
3 times. I'm 52. It's just once today.
All right. That's homosexuality. So before these people start saying, I condemn the homosexual, and then they go home and watch their porn and whack off, they're homos.
Well, Lawrence, I have a very different idea of what homosexuality is than you, but that's very interesting. Does anyone else hear?
It's very simple. As far as what the judgment of Jesus is concerning the homosexual act, whenever I would masturbate, a piece of my soul would get burned and turn into a dead flake of ash. The ash would be.
It's simply.
Let's bring Peter in. Peter's got a response.
That's Catholic.
Go ahead, Peter.
The homosexuality is simply the attraction of a male to a male or a female to a female. That is it. It's that simple. That your sexual preference is the same as your own.
So maybe what Lawrence is saying.
It's testable.
So maybe
it's wrong.
So maybe what
Can
Lawrence
you explain how it's evil? I'm not understanding him.
Bad.
Can you explain how it's evil? Can you explain that, please?
It's
no. I'm talking to Lawrence.
Okay, talk to Lawrence.
How is it evil?
So Nivik asks Lawrence, "How is it evil?"
Take it away, Lawrence.
If I can just ask a quick question, what denomination are you, Lawrence?
Catholic.
Have you ever read about the little book in Revelation that's sweet as honey in the mouth and bitter in the belly?
I do want to say, Lawrence, though, somebody asked you what denomination you were. I would assume you're Catholic. That's just
I'll answer your question. If you will answer, Catholic. I will answer your question honestly if you will answer mine.
Answer my question.
What's your question, Lawrence?
On August 25th, 2005, on November 5th, 2005, and on February 22nd, 2006, did Jesus appear to you in the Holy Spirit and say to you, tell the vision? You answer that question first, and then I'll know you're an honest person and that you deserve my answer.
No, he didn't. I never had a vision of Jesus.
And I am not going to answer your question.
Okay. This is bullshit. As a Catholic, this is fucking bullshit, bro. What are you on?
Yeah.
The real answer, let's be real.
You won't listen to Jesus. You're not going to listen to me.
Okay, let's get Peter.
I didn't hear Jesus.
He's Catholic.
But, I mean, the real reason that you want to answer the question is that there's really not a great answer to it. And I know there's not. I've asked this question to dozens and dozens of Christians, and I've never once got even close to a decent answer. Why is homosexuality ethically objectionable? And it's basically, it's unnatural, because obviously things that are natural are always good, right? We call that the naturalistic fallacy. That's not the case. So it's like, why is it bad? And Lawrence's answer was essentially, here, you didn't hear this magical thing that happened in 2005. So I'm not going to answer your question. It's like, okay, well, hand wave me away, sure. But I mean, I'm just going to give you the same hand wave, man. Like that was a ditzy way of putting things, dude. Very ditzy.
How can we understand you if you don't explain or define what you mean?
I'm not going to fall into your pit. I'm not going to fall into your pit of temptation.
Okay. So to argue
that you can't move and you're not moving anyone.
What does temptation mean? What does it mean? I understand everything else.
So I'm not going in there. You go ahead and wallow in there all you want.
Lawrence, if I can argue on your same basis, how are you supposed to spread the word of God without being willing to talk about what he's said? And what the Bible says, what our teachings say.
Look, if Jesus did appear to you on those 3 days, and he did tell you to tell the vision, and you deny it, so you're not going to listen to anything I have to say.
Well,
sorry.
You're not
never had
God, and you know He's God.
Yeah, but
And
that's
you
What
not.
you're saying goes against the Bible, so you are
You're
a
not
false
gonna
prophet,
listen to me, so
sweetie.
I'm not gonna
No, you
waste.
don't get to spew stuff that goes against the Bible and claim you're a prophet. That don't work like that. That's called wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what that's called. Okay, and I put up with you for quite a while because I thought you had dementia and Alzheimer, but what you're doing now is trying to start some kind of damn cult.
No, okay, Star, you got a 5-minute penalty. We do not. Don't worry, you're not kicked out or anything. 5 minutes for fighting. Get in the penalty box. You can come back in 5 minutes. But yeah, let's not attack individuals. Let's attack arguments. Lawrence doesn't have to, address people's questions or anything like that. No one's compelled to say anything here. But a question. I'll ask one more question to Lawrence. Maybe he doesn't. How do you there was kind of this same question, but Jesus did emphasize, and I'm not a Christian, and so maybe it doesn't mean anything coming from me, but Jesus emphasized the importance of spreading his teachings and the message of God's kingdom. How are you to do that if you won't engage in good faith, helpful discourse with even people who haven't found Jesus through these prophetic ways that you're talking about here today?
I'll listen to you.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. You don't have to answer, but I guess that would be my question. Does anyone else have?
I don't have. It does. I'll listen to you. That's all.
They're very disappointing for you to cop out like that.
Well, Niv,
I would just say, if I can add one small thing. I think the Bible verse that's sticking out, even though I'm not a Christian, is he who is among us who is without sins is the one who cast the first stone. And I think even if you think of that, there's this pit of sin and hell and suffering and despair, everything else that's down there. I don't know. I just don't know why we can judge God's design, or we should if we're on equal intellectual terms in that sense.
I think some people live that life anyway, in this life.
Why not? Why talk about it at all if it's all about faith? Why talk at all and communicating? Like, just keep it to yourself 100%.
I mean, I sort of agree. I think a lot of people are willing to speak their mind when they're asked, and everyone acts like a gorilla, gangs up on them. But like, that's not the point.
You don't have to be asked. Nobody has to say anything at all. Nobody has to talk to, or nobody has to ask.
I actually
it's all faith.
You know what? Something I'll say, Nate, on the gorilla point. I wish that more humans embodied the nature of the gorilla. I do wish that.
That is I know you're a big gorilla guy. You're even more an orangutan guy.
Peter, don't you get me? I am so jealous with the fact that you've got to hang out with orangutans and I haven't. So don't even get me started on that. I do need to get your itinerary. I do need to get your itinerary, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
Beautiful, Peter.
Beautiful Peter.
Indonesia. Okay.
Everyone on YouTube, make sure you drop a like if you're enjoying the stream today. We are talking about homosexuality and whether you find it morally equivalent to heterosexuality. I do, for all the reasons I've already outlined today, but this is an open discussion. Let's get Evil Monk. How's it going, man? What do you got on this topic?
Hello, thank you. So I think it's important to focus on the hypocrisy that exists in the religious justification for anti-LGBT. So 11 countries in the world will still put you to death for being gay. And until you religious people address that and condemn that, I won't take you seriously on anything you have to say about it.
What is the religion of those 11 countries? One is Christian.
One of them's Christian and 10 of them are Muslim.
Great, just making sure. Thank you.
I'm not going to pin them all on Christianity, but Uganda, which recently just implemented the law last year, are a Christian country, 90%.
Yeah,
Islam is 10 times worse than Christianity.
Yes. Well, Islam is way worse when it comes to homosexuality, but you Christians also have a lot to explain.
I mean, it depends on the denomination, because, like, as a Catholic, a lot of the fucking denominations are just bullshit and garbage.
Well, I think Evil Monk is making the point of the, kind of the severity of coming out or exercising your right to be homosexual in whatever given culture. The threat to your life exists predominantly under one religion and not the other, under Islam and not Christianity. That hasn't been the case throughout the entirety of these religious histories. They're at different stages. But yeah, ex-Muslims in North America and so many groups have worked very hard to save the lives of homosexual individuals who are stuck in countries that can legally put them to death for being homosexuals and just expressing themselves in an authentic way. And the fact that these organizations need to exist to save them from Islam and radical Islamists is a testament to how dangerous this is in some areas of the world. But that is also I'm not trying to be an apologist for Christianity when I say that sometimes the feeling within one's experience of being cast away by their Christian community or being told that you're going to burn in hell for all eternity by yourself because the rest of your family isn't gay, that can feel like a murder in and of itself.
No, yeah.
Are you Islamophobic?
No.
Yes, I definitely am.
No, Islamophobia would entail an irrational fear. I know Islamophobic people, but those are people that are like the people that come up to me like, Trav, you just made a meme of Muhammad as a gay man. You better run for your life. You better go into hiding, man. They're going to kill you. Yeah, that's Islamophobia. Just irrational levels of fear.
Charlie Hebdo.
Yeah, but that is one. There are small anecdotal cases of people being killed for this, right? Yes, I'm a big supporter of Charlie Hebdo and everything that happened there. I think is disgusting what happened to Charlie Hebdo. But it's a overgeneralization fallacy to think that me as someone who's been talking about, and I've got death threats before for talking about this, but they come through Facebook. They come through email with just people saying like, oh, we're going to chop your head off for this. I have no way of knowing if these are even Muslims that are sending this to me. They send it to me in Farsi or whatever. So it looks Islamic or it looks like it's coming from radical.
You got fucking Hershey Alliant.
But there are legitimate threats, but I'm just saying that Islamophobia is not to say like to outline the facts of what's been rolling out in the Islamic world. But go ahead, Scott.
Hold on, Peter. We had a draw Mohammed competition on this channel.
Yeah.
Nobody died. Nobody fucking was hurt.
Not one by that draw Mohammed competition we had, and a lot of people engaged with it. Not one threat. There were threats in the text chat while we were doing it, but who knows who it is saying.
No one drew a picture so horrendously ugly that someone just keeled over and died from it.
There were a couple of those.
There are pictures of like Muhammad getting sodomized, right? Like, I mean, like it was like a wide range. Of
our addresses aren't up here.
So
yeah, I will never use it, but I have a picture. Maybe a friend of mine when I was given a death threat from a Muslim. It's Muhammad as a dildo with a vagina. I will never use it.
Fantastic.
I will never share it. But it's nice to have it.
I love absurdist theater and I love absurdist art. I love theater of the grotesque. I love art of the grotesque. So it's all fine in my books.
Even the death threat, that dildo's too much.
It looks like we lost Star. I was just going to take her out of the penalty box, but Lawrence. Yeah, it looks like it looks like Lawrence has something to say here. Anyone else who has something to say, feel free to unmute, and I'll get to you eventually here. Go ahead, Lawrence.
In Chicago, I was a musical director for Second City. I played piano in many gay cabarets.
Nice.
Surrounded by the whole rigmarole. Okay. something that the one thing that really struck me is what sticks out about it is this. I lived a few blocks from Wrigley Field where the gay parade would go through Chicago in the summertime.
Yeah.
So I was just a couple blocks away. I could walk out my front door and there would be the big regalia and the rainbow flags and the garb and the party. Two things. One, the Halstead Street was so pervertedly drunken just after that parade, just, falling in the streets, vomiting, open drug use. It was really pathetic.
Like a Kenny Chesney concert.
And the other thing,
should the most uninteresting thing about you be celebrated so much?
Yeah.
The other
hold
thing
on. Let
Go
Lawrence
ahead,
finish.
Lawrence. Keep rolling.
After the colorful parade went down the street, it's the only parade in Chicago that after the parade goes down the street and leaves the street, there is more filth and trash and rainbows in the gutter that I have ever seen. It is the filthiest street you ever saw, where the city has to come in with the big trucks and the brooms and the shovels and sweep all the trash up. They leave more trash than any other parade.
Thank you for answering my question, Lawrence.
That's anecdotal. That's anecdotal.
So
you're saying that it brings degeneracy.
But should a person be looking
Thanks
for
for skipping
biblical
over
truth should people be looking for biblical truth when they're walking around like a major metropolis? Like, isn't that kind of funny? Like,
but
why would you do it in any case?
Homosexuality is good and clean. It is.
Well, this is hold on.
People aren't clean. All parties aren't clean.
This is specifically anecdotal, right? So if you went to Boston after an Irish parade, yeah, that place is going to be fucking bombed out and depleted, right? So you're making an argument that doesn't make any sense, Lawrence. I'm not going to lie.
my thing about this is Lawrence's claim might be empirically true, but I would want to see the data,
Might
right?
be.
Like
Correct.
if it's actually the case that more trash is left, or is it Lawrence grafting that onto the parade of something that he finds disgusting?
That's being a little selfish to a claim we could just discuss too.
It's a bad argument either for or against homosexuality.
In my city, Pride is huge, and it does leave the most trash in my city. I'm in Atlanta, but that's because it's the most popular parade of the year.
It's the most popular parade. Exactly.
Yeah,
that's the point of pointing out an Irish parade in Boston. That's going to be the most popular parade within the year. And so St. Patty's Day in Boston, when that's done, it is fucking fucked up, dude. There's just trash every fucking where.
Hey, I love this study. I love that. It's going to be fantastic. Just we go to every state, go to 10 huge ragers and festivals. We count the number of heads, and then we take all the trash together and we weigh it, and we're just like, okay,
because right now,
per capita, this is how much trash you have, and now we find out how many people identify in the LGBTQ community, and then we can find out if it's significant. I love this.
Okay,
it's such a.
Yeah, you have to make a conversation argument.
Go to a concert and they leave a lot of trash at a concert. We don't go, well, oh look, straight people are all the dirty and disgusting ones, but gay people have a parade, and then it's like, but there's more trash. It's like, well, what does that have to do with them being gay?
I know this is kind of in jest. but it's also about priorities, and when we think about the way that cities are ordered and things like this, isn't it the same thing?
It's like me having a parade because I pay my fucking TV bill.
No, it's not, Peter. The reason why the parade exists.
It should be. It should be.
Due to the long history of persecution, there is a celebration to remind us to not persecute people due to their sexual preference. That's all it is. It's the same.
Yeah. When does that end?
Maybe
when
never.
Do we get to
maybe
Pride is awesome.
Maybe no.
Atlanta, you can go to Pride with me, and I promise you, you'll have the time of your fucking life. There's no reason to get rid of.
I have the time of my life with gay people all the fucking time.
Yeah,
I never had a problem with it.
Okay.
I know fucking loads of them.
I want to get. We have Rajput clan here. Rajput clan, welcome to Pangburn. Do you have something to add to the conversation, Rajput?
I was saying my best friend for about 3 years was gay.
All right, one sec, Peter. I just want to get Rajput in it.
I'm done.
Are you there, Raj? I think Raj is just listening to some tunes. That's cool. They're just chilling. Okay, so a lot's been said. Does anyone else want to come in with some challenges? Lawrence had some interesting points there. Anyone?
Hey,
can you make a causation?
Yeah,
argument?
go ahead, Niv. Yeah.
Can you make a question argument?
Thank you,
He's
brother.
pretty much calling it degenerate.
No, one second.
Cause Jesus, fuck, man.
Just wait, Niv. 1 second.
Look,
Max.
don't try to make it out as it's a good thing. It's not. You want to make homosexuality as a good
How
thing.
is it not?
It's an evil thing.
I've already demonstrated
it's as good as heterosexuality is the proposition.
Lawrence,
if you have a reason to think it's not as good.
Lawrence,
as
there's actual
here's the reason.
murderers that don't like gay people. Lawrence, there's actual murderers that don't like gay people.
Christmas feeling you had, you don't have it now. Do you know why you don't have it now?
Don't know.
Give us your best shot.
I don't know, because I ejaculated. I don't know what you're getting at. Hello?
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay, well,
I don't
then
know
you
what
don't
you're
know.
asking.
You're very polite, Travis.
Yeah, what were you asking, Lawrence? No one knows what you're asking.
I think Lawrence had a bad experience, and he's like, "Fuck all these guys."
No,
no, he brought up a very specific situation that he was in.
I'm just making a joke.
So let's bring. Sorry, Niv. Did you get everything out you wanted to say there, Niv?
No, I said I get what he was saying about it being degenerate. Why there's brings degeneracy. It's but he's kind of like making a false correlation causation argument. Can you give a logical argument in how homosexuality brings degeneracy into society?
So yeah, you're going way back to when you asked Lawrence a question that he refused to answer. Okay.
He answered it. He said that people are gay. Bad shit around happen, and but like that's like making a false causation. Correlation equal causation. Because
the marathon ran past my apartment. The Irish parade would happen in Chicago. The gay parade would happen in Chicago. The gay parade, there was more trash on the street by tenfold
Did you measure
than
it?
any other parade.
I need to see the evidence to believe you.
I know it's true because
in Chicago they also dyed the river green.
Why do you think that is?
Do you know that?
You want the evidence? It's called AIDS.
Why?
But do you
Why
know
think that is?
Lawrence, they dyed the river green.
That's not reducing my argument for not being true.
Okay.
Why do you think it is? Answer that question.
What?
Why?
Yeah.
Yes.
He said AIDS is why.
Said Jesus didn't appear to you, so you're not going to listen to me. And even if I did answer, you'd interrupt me as I speak. You don't listen.
You did answer. You did answer.
There's no need
because it brings degeneracy. You answered.
I just want to point out that if it's the case that STDs are a reason to think that something is immoral, the most moral sex is actually a homosexual kind of sex, which is between two lesbians. they had the least
Yes.
transmission rate for all the STDs.
Exactly.
So except for
No
like
cock and balls.
that's the
How
natural
long is your
Lauren,
tongue?
but homosexuality is still it's still just as good as heterosexuality because the least transmission rate comes in the case when it comes to lesbians.
A very close
The lesbians usually fancy each other far before they're able to realize.
And scissoring's hard.
A very close friend of mine, Dr. Thomas Hope, we grew up together. We're teenagers together and stay close to this day. I edit his medical films. He is the head of the viral lab at Northwestern in Chicago. He orders 40 rhesus monkeys every 6 months, and they infect them with AIDS, and then they dissect them, and they do nano photography to discover.
What have they discovered? What have they discovered?
What he discovered was what the pharmacies didn't want to admit, that the AIDS virus infects the body within 45 minutes, not hours or days or weeks or months later.
What was the current narrative?
Within hours.
What is the current narrative?
I'm looking up a paper right now.
Either way,
Network.
Radio waves are getting to his stop it, tinfoil hat.
When did that change? Is the question. When did that change?
Heterosexual sex actually has a higher transmission rate for
AIDS is a condition. It's not a virus.
3 times as likely to have herpes as an example. So like again,
just
AIDS is a condition.
real
It's not a
quick.
virus.
Hold on, just real quick, guys. If you
This
if
is
you wouldn't look
this
this
is
up,
getting way
just-
too pseudoscientific. I think.
like yes,
completely.
let's go.
Just
Hold
being
on.
honest, this sounds like people are making stuff up.
Jesus,
No, let's go to the paper. Let's hold on. Lawrence just mentioned Thomas Hope. So Thomas J. Hope, PhD, professor, departments of cell and molecular biology. He's an OBGYN, biomedical engineer, Feinberg School of Medicine, Northwestern University of Chicago, Illinois. Is that who you're talking about?
He travels the world every year, hundreds of nations, giving speeches to doctors about the AIDS virus.
Yep. So I'm looking up Thomas J. Hope. I'm looking up his papers now. Okay, we can go from here.
Thank you, Buck.
He discovered that the AIDS virus infects within minutes, not months, when it goes into a person.
So what's your point?
Yeah, who cares? Like, what's the point?
Scholar.
It's filthy.
Huh?
Well,
I mean, so is herpes, and like I said, heterosexuals tend to have herpes at a higher rate.
If you don't have it, you don't have it.
Part of that story is we've also chased a solution to the AIDS what do you call it? We've chased after a solution to the AIDS virus, Lawrence.
What looks like Thomas Hope has spent a lot of his time like studying herpes, right? So what I'm seeing is a lot of his papers have to do with the H1V, herpes, woodchuck, hepatitis, post-transcript. Okay, visualization, HIV.
He hires me to edit the films he presents to doctors worldwide.
Oh, edit films. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I'm trying to look up his papers and understand what's going on, what you're trying to refer to.
Yeah, you're talking about Northwestern.
Homosexuality is good. It isn't. It's evil. It's detestable. It's filthy. It's sick. It's perverted.
And you're adding, though.
That's a little too strong.
There's no such thing as the AIDS virus.
And if I tell you that, suddenly I hate you. That's your warfare for homosexuality.
Oh, come on, man.
Lawrence, I have something.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Okay, let's bring Canada.
When a country wars against another country, the first thing they do is try to break off the communication or pervert the communication. When I try to talk to you, what I say You have interrupted me every time.
Don't start playing the victim. You've gotten a lot of mic time. You've gotten a lot of mic time. Okay.
Jesus.
Anyways,
Lawrence,
guys, one at a time. Hang on.
Pleasure.
Hang on.
You want money. You want drugs.
Okay, Lawrence, you're just
That's too much
muting
like
for a bit
John
so we can get some more names in here. Cananaman or Canaman, you had something to say?
Yeah, Lawrence, you keep bringing up HIV and saying that the virus is filthy. So, and that is that part of your basis for homosexuality being against God?
Jesus said it is detestable.
Okay. And filthy too. I mean, and it just, so you link the virus with the filthy, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Okay. All right, I'm going to take your giggle as a yes. Did you know that approximately 8% of the DNA that makes you is viral DNA? That a 30% more of that is bacterial DNA?
I know that you're like a head in a pit missing half your brains, not moving.
No, I didn't insult you, sir. Do not insult me.
Okay, Lawrence.
Yeah,
Lawrence is on a 5.
You do that?
Yeah, Lawrence has a 5-minute penalty. Actually, human. Do you have something to say?
I was just gonna. I was actually gonna go on along the same lines of like Lawrence is adding like we're not just talking about is it evil anymore. Now we're talking about like it's just thing. It's also filthy. It's also things that have personally. Like Lawrence gave a anecdote from his own life where he said that he went to a festival and he found it to be very dirty and it sounded like it affected him on a very personal level. We weren't talking about like whether or not Jesus or God or Yahweh or for what it's worth said those things. We're talking now about Lawrence's personal interactions with the LGBT community and how they him in his life.
Yeah, he's trying to use empiricism to like point to like, wow, look at all the filth they left behind, and it's like
I'm not saying that I don't like gay people. I'm saying that Jesus doesn't like gay people, and I have to follow his teachings.
Yeah.
Right, so could I just say something? Could we take away his good faith title as well as keep him on a short leash? Don't allow him to go on bad faith.
We're not going to do that because the way these labels work. First of all, what Lawrence is having an issue with here, the reason why he got a penalty was not due to good or bad.
I know it was insulting, but like
2 seconds. I want to point this out for the room and everyone who's listening on YouTube. So at Pangburn, we judge people's dialectical skills and whether or not they're breaking rules based on good faith and helpfulness rules. By good faith here, we mean the sincerity of your intention. Nothing Lawrence has shown me thus far as a judge here that he's insincere with his intentions, but what he has shown me is some unhelpfulness. So the reason why he has a penalty right now is because he attacked someone personally. And that would fall under our unhelpfulness rule, not under good and bad faith. Good and bad faith would be considered like trolling. If someone's being insincere with their intentions in being here, that's what we call bad faith here. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out to the room. And it's not only Lawrence. We all fall into that sometimes when we get a little too heated or we get wrapped up in the conversation. But anyways, now he's almost back in.
Can I just point something out too?
Yeah.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
I don't know. This is maybe about Actual Humans' take as well. And I really appreciated what Actual Human said, especially because I know that you're a licensed therapist. You've spent a ton of time helping people and stuff. And so like sort of like without thinking about it too much, one of my versions of that is that like even like and I don't want to say this while Lawrence is on mute, but like a place like Chicago that also has had historical like racial issues, socioeconomic issues. It's a really diverse place. Like even in a place like Chicago or something, you also have this, what do you call it? Like if we think about homosexuality, there's different contexts that have occurred at different times from some place that's like that, you know? And so, like, the thing that I, like, if I'm just being honest, like, the thing that I think is important is that we also describe reality and not just refer to people as satellites. Not to sound like too much like an anarchist, because I also don't really like that, but I think that's important.
Cool. I think that's great. Brett, what do you got? You got something to add, Brett?
Yeah, the problem I have with it fundamentally is it seems like a hypocrisy of foundation. The foundation that's claimed is one of love, and then yet there's a contradictory claim, which is, I'm allowed to judge others. I don't get that. Like, to me, that seems like a direct antithesis of the foundation of it, and the thing that humanity is.
I think you're equating one thing with another.
Sorry,
what's that, Peter?
Yeah, I think you're equating one thing with another.
Possibly.
Say more, Peter.
Travis, can I say one thing?
No, it's you're equating the mere fact of a man being attracted to a man with another problem that's separate.
Okay.
Is that I think I created enough shape.
Do you want to clarify? Do you want to clarify your point, Brett?
That the foundational message is supposed to be about.
You're talking about Christianity, right? Right, Brett? You're talking about the foundation. Yeah. Okay. Let's try to clarify exactly what we're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, the foundation's supposed to be this individual who taught endless love and who, spent their entire life going down with the downtrodden, whoever the downtrodden is. And, again, it's being stated several times that it's not for the followers to make the call on people, it's to love other people.
Right.
It's not their place to judge.
Can I go after him?
Yeah, and Niv, you can go after, but I wanted to respond to Brett. Like, that's actually similar to what Star was saying. And I think you and Star kind of agree on that. She was kind of making the point of, like, there's people out there just judging homosexuality like it's this big sin, it's the sin, it's degeneracy, and yet they're sinning themselves and not sitting in reflection on their own sin. This is obviously a bunch of atheists talking about this, but that is similar to what Star was saying, I think.
If there's a it's quite simple. If there's a deity, it's up to the deity.
Yeah. Okay. Now we got the Nivekian unit has some stuff to unload here. Niv, where you at? Or did he leave? He left right when it was.
Yeah, I think he left. Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that probably the Christians in here would say that they are not judging, right? That they're not actually doing that, and they would say that it's wrong for them to do so. But I don't just listen to the claims that people make. I also listen to the terms and things that they're saying. Like, for instance, Lawrence was saying, homosexuality is disgusting. Those kind of terms coming out. That's when I have to go. You can in one breath say that you're not being judgmental, that you're not judging people. But when you say things like that, how else can I take that other than that you are judging them? What else? How else do I take that?
Mark Bader, I just want to say that
genetic. This is a genetic thing. This is things happen. This thing that happens in you're born,
right?
And when you go through puberty, at any point, you will be attracted to males, and you probably want to hang out with females an awful lot of time. Like, women were like my girlfriend.
Right.
She's a fucking fag hag anyway.
All right. We're on YouTube, Peter. Star, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say, please don't let what Lawrence is saying to portray what most Christians would say, or how we would handle that situation, considering he just vomited all over the Bible and spewed a whole bunch of nonsense and manipulated it.
Star, I think I disagree with you on that one. Because Star, I've heard more people represent, like in my debates throughout my life, I've probably heard more people represent Lawrence's view than your more like apologetic view of homosexuality. And I know you weren't apologizing for homosexuality totally, but I think Lawrence is quite consistent with huge swaths of Christianity. And I think we can demonstrate that. But.
You literally heard him say all kinds of heresies about the Bible in the same breath. And I know you know enough of your Bible to know that.
Can I go after Star?
You guys, please. Star is talking. Yeah.
Can I go after?
But that being said, I wanted to answer Vader's thing earlier. I wanted to respond. Now, I don't know God's mind, nor do I get to judge, but we do have discernment, and we do know what the Bible tells us. Okay? And I know that it's something that separates us from God. And I believe part of that is to be because God told us to go forth and procreate and multiply, right? That was one of his commands, and we can't necessarily do that so effectively if we're going committing sexual immoralities, right?
Star, we can though. We can, if everyone was all of a sudden a homosexual, we can still procreate.
Okay.
Do you agree though? Don't you see that point?
How are you going to procreate? Are you talking about creating babies and
through medical
the
I think we're underestimating the number of gay people that have had children in straight relationships.
Right. Like
or like my two great aunts, they are a lesbian couple.
Did you just hear
both
what
have brain
you said?
surgery. They have the guy donated sperm from.
You had a straight relationship, someone you should have been married to, and then left them.
Which by the way, is a very cruel thing to do. Mixed orientation marriages it's a very cruel thing to do to somebody.
But Star, I just want to kind of get the point. Like, you know that like, if it was all homosexual relationships left, we could have homosexual males collect their sperm into sperm banks, and that can be used to fertilize lesbian women, right? Or females.
Can we agree that that's probably not in God's plan or design, considering the fact that there's also, I think like you also have to get like man and woman like complementing each other like a yin and yang. But
wait, wait a second. Can't males? Yeah, but Star, I want to challenge you just a little bit on that. Trust me, and I'm not trying to be a dick or anything, but can't you have that male-female relationship and camaraderie if they were, in fact, it just part of the community together? Can you not still have that?
All sex outside of marriage. All of that porn, all of it, those are sexual immoralities. I am not saying one person is better than the other or whatever. I'm saying these type of acts separate you from God's plan for you and following his will, and it's your will be done. And I'm like, I am a messed up person with my own sins. I am not going and saying I'm better than you. I'm just saying it is a sin, just like I have to say that the stuff I do is sinful.
I understand that you don't. I actually don't doubt your genuinity with regards to your faith and not wanting to see people, be cast into the pit of fire and all this stuff, because I'm sure that you think that's where I'm headed. But I'm just trying to make. I'm just trying to show you how your own God's word could be interpreted in a different way. I think the apologetics to date have maybe convinced people that like the sanctity of like maybe the relationship between man and woman or male and female, like that it can only happen one way. But I hear a lack of biblical support as to why it couldn't be done in a more new age way using the technology that we have. And you could say that it's God-given technology. It's all part of God's plan. Like, there's a lot of ways that I think let's say postmodern Christian apologetics could go to a place to say, no, wait a second, we can find justification for homosexual relationships and the fact that they can raise children and be part of the community, and that's where they get their interactions where the interactions between males and females happen. You know, I don't think you have to. I don't see how that's. It may seem like Christianity contradicts it, but if we can apologize away from how it's okay to slaughter all the Canaanites and all these things, we can certainly apologize away for this issue of homosexual relationships, I think.
Okay, I just want to reiterate this one part, and it's for anyone watching your thing, and that is, if you are a Christian, do not fall under the devil using hate. Notice that there's a difference between judgment and discernment, because God ultimately is the judge that decides in the end. And we're just supposed to discern what separates us from God, others from God, and do our best to follow him. It is not for us to be judge, jury, and executioner. And so anyone in that chat going and spewing hate, I would just say it's not nice and unchristian. Sorry.
All right.
I'm done now.
No, thanks, Star, for your perspective. Actual Human, do you have a response there? Or?
I was going to say that, Star, it sounded like that was a very, very intense presentation that you just gave. That it's very difficult to have people talking to you at the same time and trying to dissect your beliefs. So, it's an intrinsic part of our identities, and throwing your identity out there for people to lash onto it and flay you from it is extremely difficult. And I can tell by your voice that it was very difficult for you. So thank you for sharing that. It is. And I say that as a preface to what I'm about to say, which might be hard for you to hear, is if you are saying something that is directly from the Bible, and it is strictly exactly the way that it is written, and the person that you're talking to interprets that as hatred towards them, then how do you square those feelings? It was this isn't even your opinion, this isn't their opinion. You quote the Bible to somebody that it directly affects, and they say that is hateful towards them. How do you square that?
I don't want them to feel hated. I want them to know that they are loved.
But they do. They do feel hated. So we're already past that step. So you say the quote to them, now they feel hated. How do you square that?
How you feel and what my intent is two different things. And I am a human being that may not always have the right words to express how genuinely I mean. I don't want you to feel. Okay,
absolutely. And that's why I'm being so.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that's why I'm being so specific, that I'm saying that these are not your words that you would be quoting to a person. This would be direct Bible quotes that would make another person feel hated. How would you square that to them? Hey, this is how God feels. And then they're well, it sounds like God hates me then. I feel hated.
I have plenty of things that I work on that I am far from perfect on, and I know Jesus is still working on me. There are so many times where I feel like I fall short of what he wants me to be, and that I am somehow not good enough. And then I have to remind myself that God says to come to him as we are, and that it is not through us being perfect that we went and go into the kingdom of God, but instead it's what he did on that cross.
Okay, and I do want to point out, though,
And
So Tart made a statement. It's crazy how I've been here for about an hour and not really heard any real reason why homosexuality is morally wrong. Right. So like we're going down this thing. I think we're getting sidetracked. Is there anybody who has an argument that says homosexuality is morally wrong?
I want people to be able to go on this, and that's a great question, Scott. Before we answer that, Scott just asked the question, why is homosexuality morally wrong? We've gotten the answer that because God said so, and that's going to be a strong enough answer for many Christians. But if anyone has different reasons, besides Lawrence's example of they leave too much trash behind when they're having a good time, we'll open up the room to that. But I wanted to say hello to everyone, our beautiful YouTube audience. Hello, everyone. We hope you join us on our Discord server. This is a place that you can get good faith, helpful interactions with your ideas. That's how we police this server, and we are bitches about that. We force you to engage in good faith, helpful discourse here, so you will get that kind of interaction with your ideas. Niv, we're gonna and please drop a like on the stream. It helps the stream out so much. It helps us reach more people. And we have a big Discord room tonight, everyone. Please make sure you have the YouTube stream open and engaging in the chat there while we're hanging out here. Make sure you're engaging in the YouTube chat, but make sure it's muted, or else you're going to get an audio screw up. Niv, you're muted right now because we're getting background noise. I know you're at work and engaging with us while you're at work, but make sure you're muted until it's your turn to speak. I'm going to unmute you now because Niv gets the floor, the Nivekian unit, the chosen one.
Goodness. I know, I just was saying the body can get rid of the virus. It depends on how fast it could replicate and mutate versus the immune response of the virus. AIDS is not a virus; it's a condition, and the body naturally has a biome. It's also part of bacteria and viruses. It's naturally a part of the body. And to Cannon's comment, we're made up of viruses in our genome. So it's like across the board, 100% wrong on everything.
Yeah, and Niv's totally right here. AIDS is a condition. HIV is the virus. Just to be clear here, Niv was correct on that point. If anybody is trying to push back,
I mean, all 4 points. The body does eliminate it. It's a condition, and it's part of our biome. We have to. It's healthy to have bacteria and virus in you. It's in your gut biome. And to Cannon's point, our virus is in our DNA.
Yeah, but I thought you were making
through evolution.
Niv, I thought you were making the point that HIV is the virus and AIDS is.
I'm making 4 points.
Okay.
Gut biome naturally part of us. We evolved through it through evolution, and it's a condition, and the body can actually eliminate it. It's just a window time period in its mutation. And its growth. It's kind of like with COVID. Can get rid of COVID, but it depends on how much of an immune response versus the COVID virus growth and its mutation.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why you take a shot, an antibiotic.
Like every
shot.
disease, like.
That's why you take an antibiotic shot, so your body can have a stronger immune response.
Yeah.
Beforehand, but your body can do that with any virus. It's just your immune response versus the virus. Which one would outgrow and which one could outmutate, because the virus, the body, it has an adaptation in where it has antibodies where it would get down the virus. So it's a war of attrition.
It's a huge, vast chasm of information you've opened up there.
Yeah.
So what makes our immune system stronger? I mean, why wouldn't we catch a particular thing as opposed to catch a particular thing? A lot of it has to do with when you were younger and what you were exposed to when you were younger, as a kid, as a toddler.
Yep.
And
there's also such a double standard because most people, like, we take showers, we disinfect everything, and we do a lot of things for this concept of herd immunity versus ideas which actually makes the immune
that
system
actually
strong.
I don't know what I know on the small scale that it does affect it negatively, like kids not being able to touch the ground or lick the floor or whatever the fuck, and that all that shit, like.
Niv, I do want to bring in.
That's like real life too.
You guys, I do want to bring in our new speaker here, Jotzi. Do you have something to add to the conversation? Joe Tse in the blue? Maybe not. You're unmuted.
Oh, hey, what's up? Sorry.
Hey, welcome.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, just make sure you have the YouTube stream muted.
All right. I just I wanted to jump in here like an hour ago or something, 45 minutes ago.
Sure.
People were having a lot of this discussion about homosexuality in the Bible. They mentioned times in the Old Testament that scholars typically agree that the one about let's see if I still have it up. 1 second. Leviticus 18:22, where it says, "Do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman."
Yep.
And Leviticus 20:13, if he has sexual relations with a man as he does a woman. This is commonly understood by academics to mean, in particular, the sinner was the dominant position, was the top, and that the bottom didn't really have a say in the matter, and so they were kind of seen as the victim. And what it was really about is about it's really more sexist than it is homophobic. It's saying that men have a certain role, and if they get put into the role of a woman, that's an abomination.
I don't know what you want to do.
Accepting the way that it was practiced by the people under those injunctions, they would stone both of them. So sorry, no. That's progressive Christians trying to make the Bible nicer than it actually is.
Yeah, Joe, I agree with you that I've spoken to academics who conceptualize it this way. I agree with you that this is an interpretation, but I would say it's like I was talking about earlier, how we have these hyper intellectualized, high level academic PhD interpretations that sometimes are made to be very progressive ideas of that scripture, but other theologians and other apologists, and I would say the more popular group, is going to say that they're reading too much of their own moral standards into those scriptures in how they're dissecting it.
Yes.
But what you're saying is true, but I think the part that I think would need more examination is how popular that view is, because you said most academics. I wouldn't agree with that, but I know it is.
Yeah, I changed it to many, but
oh, okay, yeah, many. Yeah, that can sometimes mean a lot, and I'm not sure how many, but
Can I just jump in on here?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Eva.
So you mentioned Leviticus 18:22, but what about Leviticus 20:13? If a man has sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable.
Okay, so
they are to be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads.
This is what I was actually trying to transition into. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the person that did the act was the dominant one. They both got killed because the person put into the role of a woman was still made an abomination. However, it makes it pretty clear that, at least to me, that it's the act that is the problem and not the homosexuality itself. And it seemed like people were talking about a bit ago. Maybe I misunderstood, but I'm pretty sure they were saying Lawrence in particular said, I don't remember the exact words, but something about basically implying that all homosexuals are sinners.
Well, you're not wrong in that in ancient times, different cultures had different frameworks of how they understood sexuality and sexual acts, and what we call gay and LGBTQ and all that, that is a very modern 21st century, 20th century conception of these things that people in ancient times would not have understood. It would have been nonsensical to them.
Yeah.
But the point still stands. They
so
were
it's-
being condemned for something that is very innocuous, really. That there's nothing wrong with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There was something else I wanted to talk about as well, but I forgot what it was. So I'm just gonna head back.
Yes. You are not wrong in that. In the past, people would have ascribed it more to activity as opposed to identity, whereas now we are wrapped up in identity, not just activity.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, and feel free anyone to weigh in on this, but the idea of gay marriage being such an issue up until really recent history, and even parts of the most progressive parts of the planet, and in the first world, have only recently been warming up to the ideas of gay marriage. Like, can anyone make an argument here as to why it was a good thing that this has been stifled? I mean, as far as I could tell, this is just like everything. Like when people say like the USA, land of the free, home of the brave. How can you argue it's land of the free when two consenting adults can't get married? Okay, there's going to be some people argue that like marriage is sacred, ordained by God, and things like that. But how is that? Because there are also going to be Christians who disagree with you on that, and they're going to say like there's nothing in Scripture that tells you. I think Jimmy Carter had that view. There's nothing in Scripture that shows that two people of the same sex can't get married. And Lawrence, I think we should start with Lawrence. Lawrence, what are your views on same-sex marriages? Yeah.
No such thing.
Oh. Okay. Fair enough. I think
you can pretend it's marriage. It's not.
So you think it's a more like pretend thing by, when you evaluate it from God's standard. Okay.
What I did is I just prayed to Jesus that you all get the taste of blueberry cream cake in your mouth. And after a few minutes, you get the taste of the Omni-Bar food in your mouth and the smell in your nose. And then that you all who do not believe Jesus is God gnash your teeth twice.
Now, is this
that was my prayer?
Those people only okay.
The
only
sweet as honey in the mouth, the bitter in the belly. To you,
only Lawrence. I'll only do that if I can order it through Amazon and it's on sale. Okay, for Black Friday. Here.
I prefer Giordano's double pepperoni myself.
Yeah,
like
Lawrence,
I said,
Lawrence. How would you answer, Lawrence? How would you answer if there's a gay couple and over time they came to love each other more? What would that be about?
I wouldn't regard it.
Well, Lawrence, what do you think love is?
Giving your life for your brother.
Okay.
And not wanting not seeking anything in payment for it.
You were able to
okay.
Easy off the streets too. My father was once offered an old rocket.
Oh, I'm just going to mute Kay. Kay, you
So
are.
if you're
Are
there any blueberry cream? I pray to Jesus.
I don't get the blueberry.
And I just asked him to put the taste of blueberry cream cake in your mouth.
I'm
not
really,
like blueberries.
You pray to Jesus and see if he answers.
Lawrence, I'm ready to receive.
I think there's too many logical inconsistencies. There's too many logical inconsistencies.
It's just going to bother me while I'm going to bed tonight to try to sort out the blueberry cream comment on my own in my own head. So what do you, Lawrence? Can you
decide between blueberry and strawberry? I figured blueberry.
Okay, but what do you mean by that? Can you tell me exactly what you mean by that, or it's going to mess with me?
I prayed, Jesus, would you put the taste of blueberry cream cake in all those mouths? And after a few minutes, put the taste of the Omnibar food in their mouths and the smell. And then make those that do not believe you are God to gnash their teeth twice.
Okay.
If he doesn't do that, Lawrence, if he doesn't do that,
Omnibar is not even
believing
the Omnibar is not even real, Lawrence.
Okay, let's get
God doesn't do that.
Yeah, Tart, go ahead. What were you asking?
I was going to say, Lawrence, if God doesn't answer this very strange sort of prayer you're praying about blueberries, if he doesn't do that for anyone in the room, would you stop believing in him?
Gnash your teeth, Allah.
What?
He said gnash your teeth on it. So maybe that means chew on
I
it?
said gnash your teeth.
So he's assuming that you don't believe in God. Okay, so
yeah, I don't believe in God, but
when you have that Christmassy feeling,
I'm praying for Lawrence and see whose prayer gets answered first.
Gave me the authority to open or shut your soul to the Comforter.
Okay, well let's get a little biblical substance here. So on the gay marriage issue, the common arguments from a Christian perspective is that there are passages in the Bible such as Leviticus 18:22 and Romans 1:26-27 are often cited to oppose same-sex relationships.
I mean, if we want to get into biblical marriage, I mean, monogamy is not biblical.
Yeah. I want to get into I want to see what the justifications are. And Star, it would be cool to hear from you too, because you have a different Christian perspective than Lawrence. But how do you have your feelings about gay marriage evolved kind of with the times and how the laws have been playing out, let's say in the United States, or are you pretty staunchly against it? Where do you sit on that issue?
Well, I remember when during the Bush administration where this was a big deal, right? And I have always been of the opinion of I can't tell people who don't have God to obey God's laws. But at the same time, my thing was I never cared as long as you didn't force my church to marry you. Because my religion, my pastor, our sacred, space, our church does not need to be the place you go to do that. And I've always considered there to be a difference between marrying yourself before the Lord and marrying yourself before a state so that you can inherit each other's property.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Any responses?
Yeah, I just think in today's society that more people do marry for the civil benefits, the insurance, the taxes, so on and so forth. That the idea of a biblical marriage is probably 70% gone from today's society. That's just my opinion.
And it's the biblical marriage that I believe in. So I don't know, as long as you're not trying to force my pastor and my church to perform the service, because understand that we go and before people get married, we counsel them and make sure that they're not unequally yoked, having two different faiths and all that stuff in order to marry inside of a church.
That doesn't seem to help, Star, because it doesn't seem to help the divorce rate, the divorce rate is just, it doesn't seem to matter what the faith is or the lack of faith. It's just, everyone's got kind of a 50-50 chance at surviving.
If everyone else is going to leap off the cliff, it doesn't mean that I'm going to, or whatever. But whatever the case is, that was my belief system. And you asked what I thought on the subject, and that was my answer.
I'm just, I guess, raising some questions. But yeah, go ahead, actual human.
I counsel many married couples, firsthand experience, and honestly, gay, straight doesn't really matter. Everyone goes through literally exactly the same. Like, nobody is different. Everybody has the same problems in their marriage. Do your dishes, for the love of God. Do your dishes. Do your dishes. Fold your laundry. Pick up more vacations closer to home.
Put in here's a big one. I bet you come across actual human. Put in a sexual effort.
Jesus, yeah. Talk about it. Get used to talking about it.
Yeah.
If you're uncomfortable in your relationship talking about sex, go to individual therapy, because like there is something there that is hindering you personally, and it is not fair to end up projecting that kind of resentment onto your loved one.
And how much does that have to do with the Omnibar? Sorry, Lawrence, I just had to tease you. I just had to tease you a little bit, Lawrence. It's all in fun and games. Just
it's coming. It's coming soon. It's coming soon. It's the way Satan will overtake the economies in your nations. It's a handheld laser will be.
I mean, gay marriage is very good for the economy.
Like, there's going to be ministers that claim that Jesus is God that in no way believe Jesus is God, that are going to take the mark of the beast, the Omnibar. Many of them. Okay.
Hey, I can tell you right now, I remember back to the 80s, like people have been prosticating this thing back to the 80s. It's only a matter of time until Jesus comes back. It literally is right around the corner. I'm telling you guys, it's right around the corner.
I didn't
said that for millennia.
I didn't
1180s.
I didn't see the nuclear bomb in Chicago in a dream. I met the four guys that built it and saw the device. I saw the car. I saw it for real. I didn't see it in a dream. I saw it within 10 feet of where I stood.
Someone's
it's real.
Someone's trying to get in. Who was just saying that? Yeah, go ahead, Cucumber.
So Lawrence, do you see yourself as a footstool? Do you see yourself as a footstool? I'm just wondering why you would insult somebody else and call them a footstool if you do not see yourself as a footstool, because
you refuse to receive instruction.
I've very vehemently asked for instruction on any of your points, and you haven't provided anything. And I'm trying to understand.
What's going to happen to you is that nuke's going to go off in Chicago. That day, there's not going to be any more government to vote for. DC gets nuked too. Satan gets cast to the earth, and Satan is going to meet 10 world leaders. Trump is going to be one of them. Satan is going to overtake
Lawrence,
their mind.
the Bible says that no one knows the time or the season, and that if anyone comes saying, come and over here, there's the Messiah, or go over there, there's the Messiah. If anyone says that, they are a false prophet. You need to be careful, because it also says, let them be accursed, sweet pea. So you need to watch your tongue. You are putting yourself at risk.
The Bible also says, be quick to listen and slow to speak, and that you are not.
You're right. I'm not going to listen to what I know is heresy.
Actually, that was...
What does the Bible say? What does the Bible say about women teaching doctrine in Scripture to men? 2 Timothy 2:12, I think it is.
Yeah, Iconoclast
it's prophecy, sweet pea. I'm not going and pretending to be a prophet now, am I?
I don't think it speaks about prophecy.
That was a
It talks about
On a
prophecy.
night you heard a voice in your head say, don't tell the vision, was on March 31st, 2020. That was Satan. He's going to do that to 10 world leaders, and one of them is going to be Trump.
But Lawrence,
and they will be giving over their countries to Satan that way.
Lawrence and
The Bible literally says that no one will know.
Okay, but you guys, Lawrence,
on all of you, that if you are not branded with a barcode, you can't spend your money.
Okay, I just want to point.
Your fate.
I just want to point something out, that Lawrence and Starr are doing something interesting with Scripture right now. Right? They're they're probably, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're likely citing something from scripture that is accurate, but they're using it to challenge each other, because then you get to a point of like, who's right? I guess if they were embodying these scriptures, they would both be right to some degree, and they should stop doing what they're doing. So that might be something based on
Okay,
their own...
Kahneman used to be a pastor, so he can be the deciding factor. Kahneman and I talking out of ignorance.
We don't have to.
That just adds a third.
Yeah, we don't,
a third definition of that.
Yeah, we don't have to appeal to authority here, because we can just use tools to look up actual scriptures. But let's just. I'm just saying, for the sake of what you guys were saying there, it just seems to me that you both have told each other something that you should take into consideration in how you talk about the word, how you present it. I just wanted to voice that, because that's kind of what I'm hearing. And Iconoclast made some good points there. Do you have anything else to add, Iconoclast?
Sure, Jesus.
Sure. This is the problem with sola scriptura specifically. You can torture scripture to say anything that you want it to mean and ignore the other parts that disagree with your worldview, to the point where I have a theory, and I'm borrowing this from somebody else that I speak with. Can't say it's original. In 50 to 100 years, there will be, X number of Protestants, call it 300 million, whatever. And there will also be 300 million Protestant denominations.
Right. Well, yeah, it is interesting that how many Christians I've spoken to over the years. I don't know if this has been your experience, Iconoclast. It's same with Muslims and people of any religious faith, where it's just like I feel like I'm always talking to people in a parish of one, their own parish. They have their views of like, no, man, you see, Jesus was really talking about the essence of what lies underneath and all these different stuff. And then the next person's like, no, it was only this. This is what it is, because this is what I've learned, and this is my opinion. So I and here's an example here of the way a Christian's supposed to be and act. We have Star here, and we have Lawrence here, acting differently, challenge each other, telling each other, no, you're wrong. They're kind of in their own parishes here tonight.
Seems to me that the best move that most or all Christians could make is to not lean on their own understanding and appeal to the ecclesiastical authority of the system and the body put in place to fit exactly that role, instantiated by Christ. So
go ahead. Go ahead.
What we're seeing a lot is like, instead of like, this is the word, this is what I interpret it to be, we're hearing, this is the word, this is what it means. And so it's like, here's my definition of the word versus your definition of the word. And we're not appealing to like, hey, like this is what the Archdiocese says.
Right.
And so by adding our own personal definitions to those things, we're not really going anywhere. We're not asking the other person what they mean by something. Or just deciding, no, I'm the correct one in this situation. Whatever to you say.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, just look up like Matthew chapter 24, and it talks about false prophets and how to identify them and what they can and cannot say. I'm sorry, my phone is dying. I need to put it back on a charger.
No worries.
But it would be Matthew chapter 24. There's other books in the Bible that make what he's doing very obviously clear, unbiblical. But I'm gonna go and head out.
Okay, peace. Star.
Can I start?
Thanks for being
here. Mayo with that?
Do you want mayo?
I think Star, while she's exploring Matthew or whatever verse that she threw out there as some kind of rebuttal, might want to explore 1 Timothy 2:12.
Okay, Iconoclast, are you a Christian?
I am.
Oh, okay, cool. I want to get back to you in a second, because I want to ask you the begging question of the day. But Niv, if you're there, Niv, are you there?
Yeah.
You have a lot of background noise today, brother. So every time you unmute, it's killing the audio. So, but I want to give you a chance to roll here for a second, and then we're going to go back to Iconoblast with a question. But go ahead, Niv.
Well, when it comes to faith, why
should there be communication? Like, why have to? Why the explanation? And people say, well, people attack people who are religious, but if God speaks to you, why doesn't He just talk to only those who believe and leave everyone else alone? And when somebody says that they and with Lawrence, how does he know, like, if the devil, if it's, how do you know when Lawrence says anything, if it's coming from him, the devil, or God?
Okay. Your question is, okay, Lawrence, how do you know that what you know about God and God's word isn't, or your experience of it isn't just coming from the devil?
You don't know Jesus. Okay.
All right. Fair enough. That's his response, Niv. Iconoclast. So my claim that I'm willing to defend is that homosexuality is just as good as heterosexuality. Do you find that problematic?
I do.
Like I said, I've masturbated. It was evil when I masturbated.
Bro, nobody fucking has. Bro, nobody.
One sec, Lawrence. I'm just asking Iconoclast. We're going to get some more voices going here. Yeah, Iconoclast, feel free to lay out your reasoning.
Sure. As far as the moral imperative behind homosexuality being substandard, I would suggest that, at least in my worldview, is divine command. It's illustrated many times throughout scriptures that this is a moral abhorrent thing. It is described as an abomination, but, trying to appeal to authorities that the secularist or the non-theist might find, authoritative, having some merit. I think I can make a pretty compelling utilitarian argument against it. Fun little thought experiment to that point. With a wave of this magic wand in Iconoclast's hand, every LGBTQIA plus person on planet Earth just magically changes to the cis heteronormative version of themselves, or however you describe not LGBTQIA plus. I don't keep up with the terminology. But the only thing that changes is the identity, nothing else. What does society lose aside from that identity? Well, it loses 80% of AIDS cases, 70% of lesbian couple domestic violence statistics. It loses what percent of monkeypox, 40% of the self-termination rate of the T category of the LGBTQIA plus community, loses whatever percentage of crossover demographic there is between the PDF files that seem to be prevalent in the gay man demographic. And in exchange for those losses, it loses what? The identity?
Icono, I wanted to check something. What was the first thing you said about lesbian couples?
Well, the first thing I said was about near 80% of AIDS cases. I think it's like 78% last I checked per CDC. And I think it was 70-ish% of lesbian couples experience domestic violence.
Oh, you're saying, okay, what percentage of lesbian couples experience?
I think it's somewhere around 70%.
Domestic violence. If it's 70%, I'll eat my hat. Let's see. It looks like, so research indicates that lesbian women experience intimate partner violence, IPV, at rates comparable to or higher than heterosexual women. The 2010 National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey found that 44% of lesbian women reported experiencing IPV in their lifetimes, compared to 35% of heterosexual women. A 2022 report by the U.S. Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Statistics revealed that between 2017 and 2020, the rate of domestic violence was more than twice as high among lesbian or gay individuals, 10.3 victimizations per 1,000 persons aged 16 or older, compared to straight individuals, 4.2 per 1,000. These statistics highlight that IPV is a significant concern within lesbian relationships, underscoring the importance of accessible support services and services. So I don't think it's 70%, unless you're talking about the doubling that was seen in the 2017-2020 rate of domestic violence, then actually, I'm not quite eating my hat yet, but that is a problem. But how is this?
I mean, look, I could have a wire crossed and misquoted the statistic. That's entirely possible, and if that's the case, may I culpa. I don't want to be putting bad information out there.
Yeah.
But I think that it still speaks to if with the magic wave of this wand, or wave of this magic wand, rather, these things go away along with the identity that they're attached to. I think that we'd still see a marked decrease in these things that we would call problems by utilitarian metrics alone, right?
So,
or at least we'd see a less of a reporting of those things.
I haven't seen the specifics, but I wonder how much of that is, for lack of a better term, mutual. Basically, that they're fighting each other, because so basically, because what you would have in a straight relationship, I would imagine, is you have a lot of women that don't fight back.
Okay, so here's
what you would have in a lesbian relationship is a situation where they would feel more empowered, I guess, for lack of a better term, to fight.
I think that's a presupposition I'd probably push back on. Simply,
but I have no clue. I have no clue.
TiVo asked a good question. What is the reason for this? Because this is actually I'm actually quite surprised to read this. So I do want to read some of the abstracted reasons behind it. But Iconoclast, what I'm going to ask you next, after I'm done reading this out loud, is see you, Lawrence. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So Iconoclast, I'm going to ask you, what biblical relevance is there to this utilitarianism, or are you just mentioning that for the people who engage in utilitarian ethics in the room? But I first want to read this reasoning here. The reasons for intimate partner IPV violence in lesbian relationships, like in all other kinds of relationships, are multifaceted and often stem from a combination of individual, relational, societal, and cultural factors. And then here's some key factors. General risk factors, common across all relationships. So power and control dynamics, personal histories of abuse, mental health issues. Second one being unique factors in lesbian relationships. These are what I'm more interested in. Internalized homophobia. Negative societal attitudes about homosexuality may be internalized by individuals, leading to feelings of shame, anger, or insecurity that manifest in abusive relationships. Lack of relationship role models. Lesbian couples may face...
That sounds like speculation.
Well, I'm going to show you I'm going to give you the resources here after I'm done reading this. So, lack of relationship role models. Lesbian couples may face challenges in navigating relationships due to the lack of widely visible, healthy same-sex relationship role models. Coming out and identity stress. Disputes may arise if one partner is less comfortable being out than the other. Minority stress, the stress of dealing with discrimination, stigma, and social rejection as part of a marginalized group. Barriers to seeking help, fear of discrimination, limited support services, community pressures, dynamics specific to same-sex relationships, perceived equality, mutual abuse. In some cases, IPV may involve both partners engaging in mutually abusive behaviors, including the lines between victim and perpetrator. So addressing IPV in lesbian relationships to reduce IPV these are just some suggestions. And let me just grab the resources for this, but yeah, I'm interested in your
mutual abuse. Huh?
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that's all of it. I'm just saying that's interesting to know.
I would say that while I don't take particular issue with any of the possibilities laid out in what you just read there, I would say that while logically possible, I think there's probably a more simple solution to why this seems to be more prevalent in lesbian couples specifically. And I would say that's probably due to the fundamental lack of physical power balance that lesbian couples would be familiar with on an interpersonal level. So, for instance, there is a physical power imbalance between men and women and men and other men. And I think that when that power imbalance is handled by somebody who understands it, i.e. a man in the relationship, because men are more physical, not only with each other, but just in day-to-day, going about what we're programmed for, what we're biologically hardwired for.
So this would be a speculation.
I would say that's probably Go ahead.
I was going to say, so this is kind of your speculation at this point as to why that might be.
Well, I think it's a more simple solution. Call it parsimony, Occam's razor, whatever you want to call it. I think that the more simple solution here is probably more deeply rooted in the fundamental lack of understanding when it comes to power balance.
Yeah. So now, are you saying that this is an argument as to why people should engage in suffering avoidance calculus in living their authentic life as who they truly are? And who they've
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're citing these things. It's like, oh yeah, there seems to be a disparity here or a problem within these like lesbian relationships that you've identified and that you've brought forth. And there does, me as a moral well-beingist, I think it would be worthy putting good resources into addressing this issue. So I don't disagree that it's an issue, but I don't see it as a reason for people to avoid living as their authentic selves as lesbians just because this is something that exists. I could come up with many, many issues to point to of what arise in heterosexual relationships that I think are much worse, like the threat of death, right? to women specifically, as to why they might want to avoid if they're just looking at this through a suffering avoidance calculus lens as to why they should avoid a heterosexual relationship,
Well, I think that the presupposition that you're trying to bake in there is that there is not this threat of death, otherwise outside of heterosexual relationships first. And second, I would also suggest that this is just one of several things that I listed as to what society as a whole would lose along with the LGBTQIA plus identity. So
yeah,
sure, is risk avoidance, the only metric by which, you should call something immoral even through utilitarian metrics? No, I wouldn't say that. Simply saying that, through the Christian worldview, it is considered to be sinful or immoral.
Yeah.
An abomination is actually called. And I think that there are utilitarian reasons why that could be the case. Some down the road kind of consequences that may not be so apparent on their faces, like the consequences of murdering or stealing or, SA and these other kind of things, right?
Yeah, and I just want to say that, a few of your points also had to do with suicide and suicidality, and I can only imagine what it's like to be a person that gets told that you're a giant evil piece of shit every day when you wake up. Yeah, it would make me not want to be alive as much as I love being alive right now. It would suck to be told that you are evil all the time. And if that weren't to happen, if that weren't to exist, if people weren't to put the social idea or the religious idea that you are born wrong and are intrinsically wrong, then how much of that data would also change? So, wave my magic wand, now nobody does bigotry anymore. Nobody talks shit about each other anymore. And then we see where suicide and how much domestic violence still occurs.
I also want to add.
We see some kind of real quick, if I may. Then I'll kick it back to you. I promise I'm not trying to step on toes.
No. Go ahead. This is great. Yep.
With the hold on. I apologize. I seem to have lost my place. Go ahead. Maybe it'll come back to me.
No worries.
I do want to say
one thing, Scott. Before you, we'll go to Scott right after this. Types of abuse. So in lesbian relationships, we're looking at emotional and psychological abuse that is commonly reported alongside some physical violence. Coercive control may be less pronounced due to the perceived inequality or perceived equality in same-sex relationships. And this is by Barnes in 2019, related to the same study I just posted. But the number 2 point is really important in heterosexual relationship. Physical violence and coercive control, i.e. The coercive control part would be like economic abuse, isolationism, are more prevalent, much more prevalent by this statistic in heterosexual relationships where traditional gender roles often play a part. So we are in a sense looking at, through a hyper-focused lens at issues in lesbian relationships, But if we really are worried about abuse, and some would say the higher risk types of abuse, like physical violence and coercive control, some might argue, way higher in heterosexual relationships.
I will say that in that study, we're also seeing a very high level of reporting the abuse.
Yeah, and I would
so
say,
they are very willing to speak out about it, which is great.
But if you look at the studies, statistical studies are accounting for the per capita issue, right? And for the rate. So we do have to see how they control for that in the study. But go ahead, Scott. I promised you some time here.
No, I was just trying to say Pondorf is trying to get in. Pondorf asked, how do I raise my hand for audio time? Pondorf, please go ahead. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well, I don't think...
If they're able to unmute, they have to ask for permission.
We have to go through this process of, I have to server mute, then server unmute. Now, Pondorf, you should be able to speak.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening.
There you go.
So I was just listening in, and I was just wondering if currently this debate is hinging towards more of a religious based arguments, but now I've noticed it also starts to move back to the problems of these types of relationships. But I just wanted to ask a question if this was more of a religious debate.
I'll answer that right now. The proposition in examination today is my proposition that homosexuality is just as good as heterosexuality. That's my proposition today. So we're measuring the goodness of one sexual orientation versus the other. And from this, we have branched off. We have branched off into utilitarianism, ethics, and how we might view the goodness or badness based on some anecdotes that we've pulled out, and we've looked at the studies behind due to what Iconoclast brought up here.
Yeah, okay. So currently this is indeed more towards what actually does it mean to be a good relationship style or orientation.
What is good?
Yes.
Right? So if the proposition is, X thing is just as good as Y thing, then we have to first figure out what good is so that we can make a determination as to, the value judgment we're placing on X and Y things.
Go ahead.
Pondorf got that.
And I think indeed currently the direction that the conversation was having is how often do lesbian couples beat each other up, and how often does this happen?
It's extremely rare. So it's just hard. It's so rare that it hardly ever happens. But the other kind of abuse is highly reported. That I've posted the studies. I don't want to repeat it all again, but I posted the studies in the chat.
I've seen them. I've seen the DOIs.
Yeah.
I'm a researcher myself, so
Okay, cool.
I am familiar with this type of data and stuff. So I'm totally with the group right now. It's been a long time. I'm not really good with Discord, and normally you can raise a hand in certain groups. So I was like, what is going on? How do I ask for time?
This one is it's kind of informal. We kind of like to let the flow go. Sometimes some people will be going back and forth for a bit. You can use the text chat here to ask for some time. That's always a good way here on Discord. Or if you unmute and you say, I have something to add, that's always a good way to jump in. But try to find a place to do that makes sense with the flow of the conversation. Go ahead. Yeah.
So currently I think this is the point that this is the reason that I wanted to interrupt. So I think I'm going to get back to the stage right now. And when I have something to add, I will just raise my hand in the chat.
Cool. Thank you very much for being here.
No problem.
Yeah. So, and Iconoclast did ask the begging question here. Whenever we say something it should be always when we are making moral measurements, right? When we're saying something's good, bad, right, wrong. We should know what metric we are using to do this. Now, some people here are going to use the standard of God they believe to be delivered to them through the Bible, divinely inspired through the Bible. Others will use the Quran. There are a lot of different things out there. For me personally, I use the moral metric of well-being, and I come to use that through two fundamental presuppositions. And this comes from my epistemological standards of how I look at the world, and what I've become convinced through my own sentiments is a good way of knowing. So first of all, my epistemological standards, the criteria of truth that I've found to be the most accurate, and again, this all comes through my own subjective tastes, but what I've found to be the most accurate is correspondence criteria of truth, which relies on empiricism, which is essentially what science is doing as a way to inform what I think is true about the world. And sometimes I don't have the same kind of empirical access to use chemistry and zoology to figure out what this new green frog is that I found on the side of the street. It's like sometimes I don't have that data to recall upon. Sometimes I'm going to have to use logical argumentation to make bets on things like first cause or infinitism and things like this, things that we can't directly measure. So, and then obviously, since that is my criteria of truth, the justifications that come along with that are going to be evidential justifications. So evidence is what matters to me when I'm trying to justify, and evidence being things that I can experience through my senses. And then, of course, in my JTB, my justified true belief, I also feel as though I need to believe it. And belief is simply believing is, accepting the truth of a proposition. So you either believe a proposition or you don't. You're in that dichotomous space. There is no middle ground with regards to belief. And I'm just telling you what I think about the world right now. So epistemologically, I look out into the world and I see, and I'm able to notice some things about myself and other humans. We all in almost all cases of humans of sound mind, we want to live instead of die and be healthy instead of sick. Live instead of die and be healthy instead of sick. And I think these are two great fundamental presuppositions. Just let me go for a while here, Icono, and then we'll get you in. So these are two fundamental presuppositions that I think are great groundings, because internally I tell myself, and I know axiomatically, that I want to live instead of die and be healthy instead of sick. Those are things that I most definitely almost always want. So if I want to know how to live instead of die and be healthy instead of sick, how can I ensure that I'm going to be able to do that for myself and also help others who care to do that as well? Well, from that, we abstract this concept called well-being. Well-being being that all-encompassing suitcase term that covers everything that would contribute to your physical, mental, and social health. That's all I mean by well-being. That's what Sam Harris means. That's what Richard Dawkins means. That's what Matt Dillahunty means. All these guys mean by well-being. And it's called a suitcase term because all of that stuff that contributes to your physical, mental, and social well-being it's going to be so different for so many different people because we are all genetically different. So there's going to be a lot of different things that contribute there and different desires within that suitcase term. So when it comes to wanting to be able to maximize the health of mind, body, and our social nature, I use science. I see science as the best way of showing me the right steps, at least thus far, of how I can go to maximize those three categories. So that's just the general framework of how a moral well-beingist thinks about right, wrong, good, or bad in the world. So if I see someone say, homosexuality is bad, I am going to look at that through the lens of my moral quest to maximize well-being for myself and those around me. is there anything that this claim will do to maximize well-being for myself and those around me? And is there anything about this claim that is going to act antithetically towards the well-being of myself or those around me? So that's the moral calculus
I think so.
I engage with. Go ahead, Icono.
Sure. So by your moral standards, your metrics by which you would place a value judgment on whether something is moral or not, then you would have to agree with me that at least the first statistic that I cited in my little thought experiment as to what society would lose, versus the identity, which was 80-ish%. I think it's like 78+% of all AIDS cases since the AIDS epidemic broke out. What, mid-80s? I want to say it was, maybe earlier. Well, that's about 700,000 people.
Yeah.
By your metrics, being alive and being healthy are at the root of well-being. So I would say that to those 700,000 people suffering through the AIDS epidemic and ultimately dying due to it, that would be categorically immoral by those standards.
No. I'll tell you why.
Could I interject after Iconoclast?
Hang on. We'll let you come in a second. I want to go with Icono on this for a second so we can understand how this works. So I'm considering, you just laid out an argument for how particular actions related to a particular sexual orientation can lead to some physical risk. And that is something to consider. But the answer to that, the answer to that may in fact not be, and it isn't, to sacrifice the mental health, which is to sacrifice the true identity of an individual and their true expression of themselves in order to save them physically. Because do you know what? We can actually create medicines and safe sexual practices to remove the issue so that we can allow them to maximize their well-being through their mental health by freely expressing their sexuality. So what you're doing is you're mistaking, you're not considering the other categories. All three categories of well-being must be considered when evaluating these issues. It's not simple consequentialism like a lot of people like to think about it. It's exactly, I just took you through the calculus of how we need to solve this issue. This is a crisis for people, predominantly people who are engaging in anal sex. We need to do something to eliminate this terrible disease. And we've done it. By a moral well-being standard, we've done a fantastic job. And we've done it while not shaming the sexual behavior of the LGBTQ plus community.
Why shame?
Can I say something?
Yes.
So, with regards to the AIDS argument and anal sex, I think Iconoclast is adding in his argument anal sex in tandem with having AIDS, but anal sex on its own isn't a bad thing. It just is a thing.
Never mentioned anal sex once.
I mentioned anal sex because of what we know about the disease. I mentioned that.
Yeah. And so gays tend to have a higher risk chance of having anal sex, getting AIDS because of anal sex.
Gay males.
Yes. Indeed. Yeah. But anal sex, bar any STDs, isn't a bad thing. And the entire point of, there is something called AIDS, and I automatically add this to homosexuals, I think that's a fallacy.
When they're responsible for 80% of the rate of the case rate, then I think there's a pretty strong correlation here. I don't think that's outlined.
Well, I wish to see those numbers actually. 80% of AIDS cases. That I think you are adding some.
Let's check it right now.
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I wish to see that.
I was rounding up colloquially, but I think it's like 78.4, 78.6.
And also, then let's engage in a hypothetical. I mean, obviously, we do not know where AIDS.
Yeah.
We do not know where AIDS came from, but scientists, I think, have spoken out that AIDS did not randomly occur because two guys were having sex. I think it was a result of like something else.
Yeah, I don't think
I have to do some more research on this. So it's not that guys having so much sex that spontaneously AIDS.
Pondorf, you might be responding to a straw man here, because I don't think Iconoclast said that, and maybe you're just making a general point for the room. But I do want to mention that the stat seems to be 67%. Of the cases are homosexual
in America.
Yeah, that's just the male demographic of homosexual. If you include the female demographic,
I will have to do
like
some.
78%.
Since I am clearly not American, I would have to look at the statistical department of the Netherlands. So I'm going to do that now. Because the numbers might be different here. So I'll be back in a few minutes.
Well, let's not. We don't have to get super. I mean, some of this stuff is important.
Also, just one other thing. I just remembered something. So you were arguing the main guy, Travis or something.
Yep.
You were arguing about all the bases of morality and humanity, humanism and whatnot.
I was laying out my moral well-being structure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Do you think that there is a problem with our society where some people argue more from feelings, like phantasms? I feel that this is happening, so it is true that my feelings are correct.
No, I mean, it's, well, if they think they, so their feelings are valid, right? But their feelings, one's feelings cannot be used as the justification of winning their argument. That's a fallacy, right?
Yes,
but
indeed.
One thing I will say, every single thing anyone in this room has said tonight is born of their sentiments, their feelings. You may want to believe you may want to believe that you have come to Christianity, Islam, my own beliefs, everything outside of your feelings. But I hate to break it to you, if tomorrow you woke up and you felt differently about Christianity and decide to throw it in the toilet, that's still feelings. Your feelings that you are righteous in your Christian position, that it's the right path, the right way to go, that's coming from your feelings. Now, you can argue that you believe God wrote those feelings on you or whatever. Fine, we can argue about the epistemological validity of that, but don't think.
I don't think I'm making a feelings-based argument.
Don't anyone think that what we know about cognitive neuroscience doesn't apply to your brain.
Travis, but don't feelings come from somewhere? Isn't there?
Yeah, they come from your genetics, and there's a feedback loop, right? They come from your genetics, and then your senses are exploring the external world, and you're having an experience, and those feedback into your feelings. So yes, there is a feedback loop there. Yes.
So you can't understand.
And for some further clarification to the statistic that's being cited here. In 2022, gay, bisexual, and other men who reported male-to-male sexual contact accounted for 67%, 21,400 of the 31,800 estimated new HIV infections, and 83% of estimated infections among all men.
Yeah, so Iconoclast.
That's just 67% of the new. It's 83% overall. That's a big number, bud.
Yeah, another big number too is that is the prevalence of domestic violence. If again,
no, we're not doing whataboutism.
Hang on. I haven't
dismissed. Bro.
No, it's not, because I'm not dismissing your point. I'm adding an additional point to the conversation. It's not whataboutism. I'm saying
Yeah, but that's not what the conversation's about. We're talking about is, better than.
Can he finish his point, please? He's trying to make a point.
I'm just trying to tell you, because what you're doing right now is it seems to be the sharpshooter fallacy, and you're kind of sharpshooting the things that you're using to try and make your point, and I'm just adding a point that you should also consider, in that, according to the global studies that we have, 1 in 3 women experience physical or sexual violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. So that is a far more significant number and touches a far wider reaching audience. Do you consider that as something that should deter women from pursuing meaningful relationships with males? I don't think it should.
The presupposition here again is that the 33% stat that you just quoted is comprised of, was it all women, or is it women in heterosexual relationships?
This is heterosexual relationships I'm referring to.
Okay, so it's still lower percentage wise than the previous numbers that we just looked up concerning lesbian households and their rate of domestic violence, right?
No. But we're talking about hundreds of millions of women in my group that I'm referencing, and you're talking about a very small portion of women in the group you're referencing. And I also want to point something to you. Christians aren't crazy about infidelity, and according to their God, infidelity is just a horrible sin that happens. So 20 to 25% of married individuals report cheating at some point in their marriage, and the divorce rate in Christians is about 50%. So what are we going to do about that? You can't go through the suffering avoidance calculus in this domain, can you? You're going to take your risks in heterosexual relationships if you're a Christian man like yourself.
Yeah,
I'd also like to point something out.
Real quick, that's a wonderful Gish Gallop, but
it's not a Gish Gallop.
None of those out of 700,000 dead people.
I want to address that actually.
Before actual human, what we're going to do is, first of all, people, please look up what a Gish Gallop is. That's not a Gish Gallop. We want to get clear on what fallacies actually are here. And actual human, you're going to go first, and we'll go Tart, and then we'll let Iconoclast respond if he's got something.
So if part of what we're saying is that homosexual relationships are worse than heterosexual relationships because of the threat of AIDS, it's not worse, but like we're claiming that they're evil or more evil, then would we also be saying that if we cure AIDS that we have now removed evil? It's now no longer evil, because if we magically cure AIDS, like we can magically wave a wand and change people's identities. So we magically wave a wand, cure AIDS. So now it's no longer evil.
Well, it would mitigate or eliminate one of the utilitarian metrics that well-being principle.
So it's pretty easy to. Then I would say it's pretty safe to say that in a world where medicine is going in the direction that's going as fast as it is, that we can probably assume that we can probably fix that one.
Sure, at some point I'm not discounting the possibility that disease may be cured, but we're also kind of assuming here, aren't we, that there won't be a new disease that arises.
We're also magic wands. We're using magic wands in this situation, so
that's a damn good question, by the way.
Niv,
that is a good question. Yes.
So let's go to Tart. Tart, what do you got?
Yeah, so I just wanted to point out that a lot of this ends up being sort of like a weird sort of fallacy of irrelevance that Iconoclast is bringing up, right? The question is about whether or not homosexuality is somehow unethical, right? Saying homosexuals do unethical things, like, for instance, homosexuals might be more likely to, get HIV. That's bad for their well-being. But for every point that you could make like this, there's going to be some other statistic that counterbalances it, even if we pretend that it was relevant, right? We have to separate the two issues. Homosexuality being wrong and homosexual people doing bad things are two different questions. As an example, lesbians tend to have higher rates of domestic violence, as he points out, right? But what if I pointed out, well, straight men tend to be more likely to to go to jail, or why? Because they tend to be more likely to have violent crimes. Is that a point against heterosexuality? No, right? It's not. If it's not a point against heterosexuality, then in what sense is the sort of domestic violence? So
heterosexuals are evil also. So heterosexuals and homosexuals are the same. Evil.
Yeah,
now you're starting to get it.
That's part of the point. But the second issue is that this is not actually. It's not actually touching on what the core of the question is. It needs to be something endemic about homosexuality, not something that homosexual people do. Same as the whole story that Lawrence gave. He said, "Oh, the gay pride parade leads lots of trash. Homosexual people do bad things." I agree. But so do heterosexual people. But is that a point of being against being heterosexual? No. So the issue is the question is, what is bad about being homosexual? Not what bad things do homosexual people do, right? There's a difference between those two questions.
I agree with this argumentation.
I get where actual humans coming from when he says, well, this is evil. If it's evil, then it should, and they're doing a bad thing, then it should stay. But what if a cure comes? But that would be impossible, right? Because it's a bad thing. Like that's something that shouldn't happen.
God has pre-decided that this is an evil act and is enacting divine punishment upon these people. Which, first of all, God is. We're also agreeing that God has created these people in order to enact divine punishment upon them. So not exactly all good.
Well, there's an ethical way to have sex, right?
It's vague logic. Actually, what you're bringing up, actual human. God's punishing us, so there's and we have to do this, and you have to do that in order for us to stop the punishment. But now we can cure the plague now.
Yeah, God would not allow for us to advance technology to a point to defy God's will, right?
So everyone, I want to say thank you to everyone who contributed tonight. This was a fantastic discussion. Thank you to all of our new speakers, everyone who's new on the server. Guys, we have off-air voice channels. We aren't always live. We have off-air voice channels just below. You'll see down in the server, it says Trav's Tavern. That's a fun general chat. If you're looking to make friends and just lightheartedly shoot the shit, that's a good place to go. We have a philosophy chat, politics, whatever you want to talk about. You can always find a good conversation here. If you ever have issues where you think admin need to weigh in on a server rules issue, just tag @admin and someone will eventually get to it. Don't try to police things yourself in the server. Just back away if you think someone's breaking rules and we'll take care of it. There's also the Pangburn library, which is full of a long library list of text conversations that are ongoing all the time with different things. If you want to share some of your work here or the work from your channels and stuff like that, feel free to share it. This is a place to do that. And if you have questions or comments, you can always send me a DM if you have questions for me. I want to say thank you to everyone on YouTube who joined us today. This was an interesting conversation. Feel free to join us anytime. We're live almost every day. So let's head down to the off-air voice channels to continue some conversations, and we'll catch you guys next time. And as always, let art and science inspire.